for fiscal year 21-22. So I would expect everybody's participation to be orderly and informative. And we'll go through roll call right now. Myself, Dan Spring, the chair, Paul Simon, Carolyn Howell, Mike Anderson is present, Dan Smith. And Sarah, you're sitting in as an alternate position right now. I'm assuming Ann is going to join us. So, all right. Mike, from your side, anything that you would like to add at this point?
Yeah, thank you everyone for who's attended tonight and all the board members for being here. This is the, since I've been here anyways, we've kind of kicked off our budget process with the two boards coming together to hear presentations from the some of the departments that had a heavier piece of the budget, and so that's what starts tonight. And in attendance is Bob Carlson, myself, Anita Kincaid, Christine Dias, admin finance for the town, is also here. I just would mention that the Board of Selectmen has not heard any of this yet. We have not seen, we haven't discussed the budget. We haven't even had a budget meeting yet at all. So I just want to make sure everyone on the call understands, like, anything that's being presented tonight hasn't gone through the Board of Selectmen. We haven't made any decisions on anything. We're all hearing it all really for the first time tonight as well. So looking forward to hearing the work that folks put into their budgets, as well as, thankful for those who put the time into the preparation of them and the presentations we're going to hear tonight. So
absolutely, absolutely. All right, we'll go to public comments, and if there should be any at this time, Christine.
Okay, so if you have a comment, please raise your hand. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Chet Stefanovich, 35 Button Road. I just wanted to take a moment to speak in favor of increasing the budget to our town library. My wife and I moved here 2 years ago from the town of Groton, where there was an incredibly robust and impressive library system there. And we really thought that we were going to be taking a step down when we came to North Stonington in terms of our access to things and the activities going on. And we've been so incredibly impressed since we've moved to town with the things that have been going on through our library. The activities that they have done. Our children have participated in numerous different things prior to pandemic, obviously, in terms of the activities during the summer, especially the activities that they did consistently for both adults and children are just above and beyond what you would expect from a small town library. And it has absolutely blown me away, my wife as well, how active they have been in supporting a variety of things throughout the town. We look to get the town to be more walkable. They put up story trails that you can walk to read books with your kids along the way. When my wife was working on the playground committee, they were incredibly willing to assist in terms of fundraising. They allowed people to set up fundraisers outside. The staff there is absolutely incredible, receptive, gives our town a wonderful view of when new people are coming into town. It's a great place to get to know people. We've used it so consistently through the time that we've been here, and we would just love to see the funding increased as much as the town is able to be able to help them continue to do amazing work in the town. So,
thanks for your comments. Christine, anyone else?
Yep, Brian, go ahead.
Hello, I was just listening to how Brett's not going to be able to comment on any of the other, like the planning and zoning and the public works and the Wheeler Library part. I can understand why he wouldn't be able to comment, on the EDC because he's presenting the budget, but he's not presenting for the others. I'd like to see, or at least hear his views or questions on the other things if that's possible. I didn't know if it's a rule or just what's going on with that. That's all.
There's nothing going on other than just trying to limit any any sense of conflict, Brian. I did mention to Brett, he could make some comments during the end and public comments.
I just don't see how, if he, when you have like, for an example, if planning and zoning is presenting something and Brett's got to wait to the end, there's a lot of people who probably fall off and won't even hear his comments on that. That's why I think it's important that he be able to ask questions while the planning and zoning is there.
Well, Brian, you're not sitting in my chair, but Brett could talk very favorably relative to EDC and maybe not talk so favorably, for others who are representing themselves tonight. And it's just seen as, okay, does Brett have more impact or confirmation relative to members on the board? It's difficult to be on both sides of the table. Next, Christine.
Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add on to those comments. I really want to hear what questions Brett has, what comments he has about the budget. I would argue that the decision to recluse oneself from discussion is in fact a personal decision. Unless the Board of Finance has a Board of Finance policy on this, or he is violating an ethics policy of the town, I think he should be allowed to, and I think it's a personal decision. It's not, the chairman of the Board of Finance doesn't have the authority to make that decision for Brett. Thank you.
I think, Sean, again, I can understand your position. I said that Brett could make comment in the public comment.
He's a board member and should be allowed to speak with the other board members.
Well, you expect him to speak on both sides of the table, Sean, and
And you're making a decision that is not yours, but thank you.
well, Sean, I am the chair of the Board of Finance.
You don't have that authority.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Sean, and I will leave it at that.
You're not King Lamont.
Nor are you, Sean.
Okay, we're going to move on. Lou, go ahead. Lou, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Can anyone else hear things? Because I can't. No, okay.
Yeah, we don't have Lou. I can see that he's on, but muted.
All right, Lou, try to unmute yourself and see if we can hear you.
Caroline, I know you want to be recognized. We're still trying to get to public comments.
Oh, now you guys are muted.
Oh, can you hear it? We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I don't know what's going on.
We can hear
I'm gonna have
you.
to try something. Oh, hold on. Now can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you too.
Go ahead.
So, if this is concerning the board of, if Brett has something to say that about the planning and zoning budget or the planning budget, I have no problem him speaking, and it is my feeling he should speak it. He's a town official, just like I am, just like we all are. And in past practice, town officials are allowed to comment on, I mean, even every planning and zoning meeting I've ever had, a town official there, they have they're freely allowed to comment because they are a town official. They're not just the general public. And if Brett has a comment on our budget, I expect to hear that comment, and not in some later time, because I expected to hear it as we go through our budget.
Thank you, Lou. I respect your input. At this time, relative, Brett, as you can see, it creates a little bit of a situation. I'm happy to poll the remaining Board of Finance members to see if Brett should continue in discussion as if he were a member of the Board of Finance. Now, Carolyn Howell,
Yes, I believe that Brett should be able to speak. I think that everyone should have the opportunity to speak when we're in these discussions. We are part of a small town, and all of us may have knowledge that's important to share in this decision-making process that we're going through. This is our first meeting, and I'm surprised that this wasn't brought up in advance if this is how things were going to be going forward.
well, it should be obvious to you, Carolyn, that there could potentially be conflict here.
There could be conflict with anybody. We've had we have members on our board currently that have served in other areas on the school modernization and Board of Ed in different areas. So does that preclude them from participating? I mean, I just think that we should all be a part of this conversation. I think it's important. I think everyone can be respectful, but we should still be able to have these discussions.
Thank you, Paul Simon.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I'm happy to hear Brett's comments at the time of the department's presentations. While I understand where your position is, I think we're happy that the town has spoken, that folks on the public have spoken. I think it's reasonable for us to hear his input.
Dan Smith, thank you.
Honestly, I can't believe we're actually having this discussion. He is a board member. He was placed on this board. He should be allowed to question freely within the rule of the meetings. And I think he should be able to question and comment freely. I agree with Carolyn and everyone else.
Okay, Mike Anderson, thank you.
I guess on the EDC stuff, then obviously we're going to ask him to refrain from commenting, but on the other areas, I see no reason why you should not be part of the conversation at the time, Dan. I see why you did it, but given the public comment and the fact that, his comments might bring up more relevant comments by us during those times, I think it's pertinent to have it at the time of the discussion.
Okay, Sarah Nelson.
I do think it's a conflict of interest in general, personally. I like Brett a lot, so it's absolutely nothing negative against Brett. I just think if you're a chair of a board and you're putting a budget forward, it is potentially could be construed by, I'm sure Brett has no intentions of this, but could be construed by the public that he has an in, is he sitting on the board and can make cases that other board members can't necessarily, or other folks can't necessarily make. So I know I'm the odd one out, but I agree with Dan.
You're not the odd one out, Sarah, not at all. If I didn't have a concern, I wouldn't have brought it forward myself. Mike Anderson.
Well, like I said, he would have a conflict if he was adding comment and being part of the discussion with regard to his own committee. So in that sense, that he should not be making comments, which is what I said earlier, because it'd be an absolute conflict. But those other ones that are not necessarily tied to his own position, he should have a chance to comment. That, if I didn't make that clear, that's how I feel at this point. So maybe if we all clarify that that's the truth, that's the case, then maybe that would help.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. So Brett, my decision has been reversed, and so you're able to make comment as we move through the process.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's support on that. I understand, Dan, where you were coming from, but I've been on committees for 12 years now, and I understand where I should comment and shouldn't comment. And of course, I wouldn't lobby for my own budget during a discussion. But I did put time into looking at all the other things. So it was a surprise to me as you brought that up today, but I appreciate everybody's comments and I'm glad to participate after my presentation.
Thank you. And again, don't be surprised. I mean, you have to look at it as potentially a point of conflict. And so we've aired that, we can move forward.
We have one more hand up for public comment, so I'm going to recognize that person and then we'll move on. Go
Hi
ahead.
there. Hi there. My name is Diane Keene. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunities to say a few words about the Wheeler Library. I've lived in North Stonington for about over 20 years now and lived in southeastern Connecticut all my life. I would commute from home to work in Groton and occasionally stop in the Groton Library because it was convenient and I thought it was bigger and better. I could count on one hand the amount of times I visited our town library since moving here. Then things changed and we all had to adapt to COVID last year. Now I visit the Wheeler Library more often. And although it's not the biggest library in the area, it's better on the inside. And I really appreciate the Wheeler Library staff for their tremendous support. They are a true community partner. Various groups hold meetings there. There's children's programs, movies, computers, Wi-Fi. There's something for everyone there. And when COVID hit, they rose to the occasion and provided ongoing support to many of us, and we appreciate their efforts to keep our community safe. I also noticed that a lot of other bigger and better libraries closed to the public, all except one. Wheeler Library staff kept things going and continue to keep things going now. Great job to them, and we appreciate all their efforts. And in closing, I want the board members aware that Wheeler Library has supported us now and must be allowed to continue to do so in the future. Here's our chance to ensure their future with full financial support. They have certainly earned it. Their specialized skills and attention to details have resulted in something that our town can be proud of. Wheeler Library is critical to our town's success and must be preserved for our use, for our children, and for generations to come. It is a true gem, and they cannot do it without the support. Board members, please give them what they are asking for. I'm sure most of the other area libraries receive more funding than ours. Plus, it will keep them in line with other similar towns in our state. In North Stonington, our Wheeler Library is the house of the people. No other place or building in town is more welcoming to us, the public. Board members, please provide the requested funding to our Wheeler Library. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Well spoken. Christine, is that it?
Yep, that was the last one.
Agenda item number 3, correspondence. The only other interaction I've had, I did speak with our town auditor, Sandra Wellwood, relative to the engagement for fiscal year 2021. And we'll be talking about that later in the agenda. So we move on to agenda item number 4. Mike, under Board of Selectmen, I know you spoke already. Is there anything else you want to preface before we start?
I don't think so.
Okay. And it was no particular order, but on the agenda, EDC is up first. And that would be Brett, Chair of EDC.
Hello, everybody. Is there a way to bring Juliet in to the meeting in case we have some questions?
Yep, I can promote her to panelist.
All right, perfect. Okay. So, is she here?
It takes a minute to switch over.
Okay.
She is there now, yes.
Yeah, I
She just
see her.
hasn't turned her, there, okay.
Yes, she is.
Been promoted.
All right, so I don't know how you want it presented this year. We did put in the cover letter as requested. So you can see the hard numbers to start, but let me just say that this has been an interesting year with COVID, as for every department. EDC is no different. It caused us to change some of our planning, some of our events that we were looking to do, and work with a lot of existing businesses on helping them through COVID, working with planning and zoning on changing some of the signage regulations for the temporary, once the governor put in some mandates and executive orders to allow us to do some of those things. So we can go through the budget as it is. Juliet, did you happen to update the actual year-to-date expenditures? Because I noticed in the Board of Finance one, those weren't in.
To be able to
Is she breaking up on me, or is it me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
No. I can't share my screen, or I would share you.
Okay.
Brett, maybe you can give us a sense as to where you want to start.
Julia, you should be able to share. It's not letting you.
It said host disabled participant screen share.
Got to make her a co-host.
I'm also sure she's got a few other things to share during this.
So I'll have to do my own budget sharing.
Yeah, I made you call.
All right. Okay.
And Anne is signing on right now. Dan, just so you know.
All right,
You want me to wait a second?
Yeah, because I have to get back to the. If you get on this computer, you have to have them open to begin with. So.
Well, while you're going through that, I'm going to just go through some of the positives that we've seen. For the past 6 years, we've still been the top 1 or 2 towns of our Connecticut town economic index score. And potentially looking at the numbers this year, we should be 1 or 2 again. There's one town that came in a little higher than us, but they had just one bigger project that came in. We also had 3 new commercial accessory businesses start up. 5 properties have been redeveloped for new businesses, 4 new home occupations, and then 3 expansions, which we've increased our commercial square footage to 51,853 this year was the new commercial industrial square footage. If you look at the budget, so as you can see, we haven't spent a ton yet under our this year's budget. We have some things that are coming up. So right now, what we worked on so far, we worked on with planning and zoning, like I said, about the signage. We worked on COVID signage, sanitizer for our local businesses, branding North Stonington for local businesses on the radio and through social media blasts. We just recently started our Shop Local, so it's our Shop Share Win promotion. That's with local businesses as well. On hold right now, some of the things that will be coming out of our budget that haven't happened yet. We're working on open houses was one of our initiatives that we were going to start this year with existing businesses. We were going to work new business launch events. So as a new business opens, almost like a chamber does. Also, our all boards and commissions EDC seminar, which we talked to all boards and commissions about how economic development affects all boards and commissions and how every board and commission in this town is part of the overall economic growth and how those different boards can work together with us to promote economic development within the community and surrounding areas, and also mapping. So those are the things that still have not come out of our budget that are still being planned, but they are on hold with COVID. A lot of these things have stayed on for the year. So if you look at this that Juliet shared, this gives you a little more understanding compared to the spreadsheet that the Board of Finance gets. So we break down the line items here. So we're planning on doing an updated business directory. If anybody can see the screen, this is the last one we did. This was 2014, 2015. So it's we're working on a printed and digital directory, and that's in this year's budget, the proposed budget here. And I'll cut right to the chase on this. The biggest increase this year is we are proposing to hire a part-time economic development assistant. And what I'd like to do is just give a little background on why and where this comes from. So in 2014, we proposed this to the Board of Finance. It was I'm just pulling up my exact paperwork here. I have a lot in front of me. Okay, that was an economic development coordinator part-time, and that was 18 to 20 hours a week, and the salary range back then was $25,000 to $30,000. And what started this was probably a 2-3 year push to try to get this position into place, because we were growing and we wanted to be prepared for growth and not reactionary. I'm just going to read you something from 2014 from the Day article. And it was all about economic development and how a lot of times it's just a catchword for politicians to use, but in small towns, it is a challenge. And this was a snippet just about North Stonington, and it says this was 2014, remember, when taxpayers approved a nearly $4.5 million government operating budget last May, the town's Economic Development Commission received $6,272, or about 0.01%. It's 8 volunteers who meet monthly.
It's 7:30.
Make up the town's only group charged with funding ways to increase taxable property. And although they are aided by the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Planner Juliet Lemon, they remain overwhelmed and underfunded for the task at hand. That's something EDC Chairman Brett Mastrani wants to change. This Wednesday, the Board of Selectmen and Planning and Zoning Commission and EDC Commission are scheduled to discuss one of the plans of the Conservation Development recommendation is to hire a specialist to market the town. And that's where this stemmed from. It stemmed from our plan of conservation and development. And it would drastically, I said it back then, and I'm saying it tonight, it would drastically increase what we could do as a commission. We did hire somebody, Sam Eisenbeiser, and he worked great. 2014 through the end of 2015. When he left, he actually ended up in Groton, and he was doing a great job over there. The Selectmen, Planning and Zoning, and EDC decided to try to combine the positions. And that's when Juliet came back to us in, what year, Juliet, was that?
2017, March of 2017.
Right. So we combined the positions and we merged the 2 roles. So it saved the town a little money. I think it saved the town about $20,000 when we merged those 2 roles. But what it did was it took away EDC's ability to do some of the smaller things, to have the boots on the ground as we come up with these initiatives. And we've come up with quite a few of them, and we push to work them, but we're one of the only commissions in town that come up with these without a dedicated staff person to do the smaller things. Juliet's been great, and she works on the bigger overall picture of this. And she's part of the reason that we are where we are with our economic development in this town. It's as this job merged, Lou Steinbrecher, myself, and Mike met in 2018, and we revised Juliet's role a little bit. And so she still is appointed by, according to this, the EDC and planning and zoning. But she also now oversees the building officials office, and works with a lot more of the committees that were initially just for her to help out with. So some of these tasks that we come up with in these initiatives are really not to the level where Juliet needs to be involved in wasting her time on. But it's something that we need to allow this person or Economic Development Commission to achieve the growth that we've had and continue to have. And like anything else, as we grow, there are some services that we need more of. And this is one. Like I said, we are a volunteer board and we can only do so much. We can come up with these plans, we can implement them, but we need someone that can take the time to go out there, meet with the businesses and help with the growth and retention of some of these businesses, and then bring Juliet and the rest of the Economic Development Commission on board when there's a bigger thing to deal with. A lot of the things that we talk about are, running along with these initiatives. So if you look at this year, it was difficult to get to all the businesses with our COVID response, with our signage, with our sanitizer. And those are just some of the little things that when we had a dedicated coordinator that spent time just for economic development, they were able to do the big things and the small things. So they worked on some of our print media. They helped design that and get that going, which now we would have to sub all that out, which we did 2 years ago or a year ago. We subbed out for some design work, but this was somebody that we had in-house that could do these things. And it ties into a lot of our initiatives. So that is the biggest increase on our budget, if you can see that.
Do any of the Board of Finance members have questions to the chair of EDC?
Julia, do you have that job description if you want to pop that up?
I don't have it.
Okay. All right. If you guys would like, I can read you some of the major duties, if that's helpful. But the basics of it are, we're looking for someone 10 to 15 hours per week at a range of $20 to $25 an hour. And the way we did it in the past, it was a 1099 employee. They would be, their job summary is to provide support and assistance to the Economic Development Commission, Planning and Community Development Officer, and the economic development activities for the town of North Stonington. Their major duties, I'll just read them quickly. They provide support for EDC, record keeping, meeting agendas and minutes, and preparing required reports. Supports the town of North Stonington in promoting EDC activities and its success via internet and internal and external venues, Assists with the development of marketing materials, brochures, and programs related to EDC initiatives. Responsible for coordination of media releases and social media marketing. Assists with the development related to public information and media relations. Develops and maintains an inventory of town businesses and assists tenants and property owners. Attends related meetings and events during and after working business hours, and assists in the execution of long and short-term objectives, strategic and operational plans. So that's the basics of the job. But what it does is it takes some of the smaller duties that we really struggle with. And that Juliet, honestly, since planning and zoning and even the housing construction have increased in the town, it doesn't leave her time to do. And really, as a commission, we feel that it's not right for us to ask her to do those things anymore, because the job has grown so much. The selectmen have added duties to her role over time. And we're just at a point where to really make progress and continue the growth that we've had, we need someone that can implement these things. And this is a revenue generating position in my mind. Not only does it help with existing businesses grow and retain those businesses, but it could help with reaching out for new growth and new businesses. We've come up with a lot of new ideas going into next year. Some of them just came up at the meeting last night, where we're going to look at comprehensive parking plans for the village and try to work with planning and zoning on that. We're also doing a survey out to the residents, because we feel that it's important to reach out to residents and find out what their position on economic development is. Where do they want to see growth? Where don't they want to see growth? What kind of growth, and how much growth, I think, is the important question. How much growth is too much? How much are people not willing to bear in North Stonington and change the way we look at North Stonington? So we feel it, as a predecessor of the plan of conservation and development that'll start next year, it's important for economic development to get a handle on this from our residents. So we talked about it at last night's meeting, the way we're going to do that and try to get as many responses as possible. So we're not getting just isolated responses from a certain amount of residents. We're trying to get something that'll encompass a good majority of the residents to really understand what they see for North Stonington and what they'd like to see North Stonington be or become. So I'm open to any questions regarding any of the stuff I've just talked about.
So Brett, you have a virtual hand raised from Dan Smith, a physical hand raised from Carolyn.
Okay, all right.
That's what I see so far.
Who was first?
Dan.
Okay.
Hey, Brett. So how much money or how much revenue or business have we lost by not having somebody in this position over the last couple of years? And what are you guys seeing as a return on investment if this position is filled for 15K?
I don't have a handle on how much we've lost not having this position. I can tell you a lot of the initiatives we've worked on, we weren't able to complete by not having this position. And as far as revenue projections, I mean, that's a tough one. That, you know, we can make any guess we want, but it won't be accurate. Juliet might have some input on what she sees with this.
I can answer that one.
I've discussed this in depth with her when I brought up the idea. But with her background with sector and economic development that way, I think she can answer that. And just to let you know, when we had the coordinator before, he attended a lot of those events, that the smaller events like Chelsea Groton had a business marketing event that he was able to attend. And we met on he worked 3 days a week, and we met every day that he worked to go over his plan, what he was working on. He would provide a weekly report to the Economic Development Commission. Juliet provides a bi-weekly one, but her stuff is on the bigger scale. So we'd like to condense that and have this person handle the smaller things. But Juliet, go ahead on that.
Yeah, that's a tough question and probably very difficult to quantify. So there's two different distinct roles that I think Brett was clear about. There's a higher level planning and economic community development, whatnot, that we have a very good handle on, and that is obviously backed up by the fact that we are like the #1 town in growth, that we have had a tremendous activity despite a pandemic year. So all of that is on track. We're all on top of all of the prospective businesses that are wanting to come here, to expand here. I don't see any issue there. We are making revenue. We are seeing growth. What I think the distinction is that there are programs that an economic development commission or town can employ that are focused on, you know, a lot of attention on your existing businesses. What do they need? So that business beautification program or the business visitation or the COVID response, those are very locally, you know, focused. It's not necessarily a revenue focused. It's just how to maintain or retain the businesses that you do have. And I do see that as a role for the Economic Development Commission, marketing the existing businesses, providing support when, you know, we did some advertisements on the radio to encourage people to, you know, do the takeout when COVID really hit, that kind of thing. So that's not something that we can quantify. I don't think we're having any difficulties on the bigger level other than, you know, trying to make some decisions about infrastructure that would, you know, dramatically increase our development, but that's not the issue. What I think Brett is asking for is a dedicated person to take care of the smaller things that are equally as important, because without business retention, that's half the battle, but you just can't quantify it the same way that you're asking. We haven't lost any revenue per se because we didn't have that. That's not the way to look at it. We lost opportunities to support local businesses, but they're still here. We haven't lost any businesses because of something that we haven't done.
It would just help us increase that. And we've, over the years, I've been on EDC for quite some time, and we made progress in all the aspects that were asked of us throughout the years. And as I look at that article from 2014, even there, they put in an article in the day, which I'm so grateful that planning, zoning, and Juliet and everyone have changed some of these regulations. But in that article, it says, even if a developer were to submit a proposal to the Planning and Zoning Commission, its stringent regulations remain lengthy and convoluted. Developers must jump through several and often costly hoops, including a cumbersome special permit request that requires a public hearing.
That's no longer the case.
Yeah, those things are no longer the case. So we've come such a long way, and I think our rating in the state shows that. And we just need to be prepared for this growth that is, well, we've seen it with the new businesses popping into town over the past month. You know, we need to help them, promote them, and work to fill some of those vacant spots. Last night, we talked about our zoning areas, and the consensus of the board was we want to fill those areas best we can and promote those areas without expanding right now our commercial areas in North Stonington. So it doesn't affect everyday life. But those are some of the things that we need the help with. And on the smaller scale, this person can run with some of the initiatives that we've developed. Carolyn, is her hand still up? I don't.
Yeah, I was just curious, is this person, are you proposing set hours, and would they be in the office or on the road, or how would you track that? And, you know.
So it'd be a combination. Like I said, they're a 1099 employee. It would range, like I said, 10 to 15 hours a week. But what we saw in the past, when we had the dedicated person, those hours would shift a little bit. There's certain weeks that might be 6 hours for him or she to do something, or in the next week might be 16 hours. But it all averaged out. I think rec was that way at one point too, where, you know, it was a window, and certain weeks were more hours than other weeks. But it was always averaged out. But the way it would track is just like anything else. They they provide us in the past almost with a call report of what they've done. But yes, we'd have to find a place for them, hopefully in town hall, to have some kind of office desk and work from there. In the past, we had our own separate EDC office, which was combined with the rec department. But with this, we'd be hoping to have some sort of desk or office in town hall. I don't know if the building official's office, there's room in there because there were or not, but
there is. Yeah.
They definitely would be tracking their hours monitored, and it's all about production. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah, and then Mike.
Thanks, Brett. So a couple questions. How many businesses does the EDC serve in North Stonington?
Total businesses?
Mhm.
Do we serve? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you talk about like signage and the COVID helping, and those were some of the duties I think you listed.
That's
Like,
what we
how many people are you supporting?
So the interesting part of North Stonington, there's also a lot of home occupations and businesses that operate out of their home. And that's actually been a difficult thing to get our hands around. And that's one of the things we're working on with our business directory to get a handle on it. But I mean, if you can look at my screen here, these are technically all the businesses in North Stonington. This is our somewhat of a directory that we have now. So there's a difference between brick and mortar locations and home-based occupations. What we see and what we'd like to see is a home-based occupation that grows to where they need a commercial location. That's ideally what we want to see. And that's where EDC and Juliet and hopefully this position can help those businesses grow when they are ready to move out of a neighborhood and into a retail location.
I think what she was asking for the COVID, it was the hospitality industries that we were focused on, the restaurants, the hotels, and
retail locations.
Yeah, retail
So
later.
mostly all brick and mortar on that front.
And initiatives like shop share and win. Are you focused on all? Are you focused primarily on the brick and mortar? Like, I'm just trying to get the sense of, for
So
the person that you're asking for help, what's the scale of what, scale wise in this town that they'll be supporting?
So on the shop share and win, we'd like to grow that to not just brick and mortar, to people that offer services, landscaping in the future. That's what we're trying to do as spring comes. And really what it is, it's about awareness. It's about bringing awareness to the surrounding communities of what North Stonington offers. And that's where that program started.
Okay, but we don't have I saw your, I think we just need an extra column in your spreadsheet, Brett, 1 through. Copy it down. You can tell us. I'm just curious, what's the scale for our town?
Yeah, I can do I can get that to you, the total number that we have with home-based businesses as well. Because we do have, Juliet might be able to touch base on this. We have so many landscapers and services like that work out of their home that we're trying to reach out to and get that information from. But it's been a challenge, and it's been a zoning struggle for Juliet over the years with some of these home-based businesses to get a handle on them. And
yeah, for an EDC, they focus more on the, as you drive down Route 2 or 184, the businesses that are located along those roads. And then there's certain home occupations that lend themselves to that kind of support, that offer, a service that you can easily promote, or if they want to be promoted by EDC. It's a matter of touching, once we get a directory and whatnot, and that email base going, then you can reach out to say who wants to be supported. Not all businesses want EDC support or care about that, but some businesses do and do need it. But it's a big undertaking to do a business visitation or marketing. But so you try to pick the things that will affect the most businesses.
And it's like any other, if you look at it as a sales end of things, how many touches, how many times are we reaching out to these businesses? Because I can tell you that's one of the struggles with some of these programs that we have run, is getting in with the businesses and then following up and having them actually participate and do it. Some of them get excited in the beginning, but if we can't stay with them and answering, reaching out to them, they end up falling apart. We've had daycares reach out to us about different programs and what we can do to help. Our last budget cycle, our budget was cut pretty dramatically. So some of the things that we've come up with the past in regards to North Stonington, we had the business beautification, which we were trying to do some aid to businesses to make themselves more look better, especially on the Route 2 corridor. But that got cut out of our budget in years past. So to be honest, over the years, I've heard mixed things about we should be spending more on economic development. There's not enough in our budget, and sometimes then we have too much. I really don't think we have too much. I think we need someone that can help execute this and bring it to the next level as a position, because we're reaching out to businesses that mostly are during the day. So it's hard for volunteers, and we do have volunteers on our commission that say, I'll go out there, I try to run to see as many as I can, but it's hard because it's during the day. So a lot of our commission members.
Let's get to more questions. I think, Mike, you were up next.
It's Dan, I don't know if you remember this, or Christine, you can answer the question. We had our building committee, we recognized really early on that we needed a designated secretary to be there to, to take the minutes and to do all the correspondence and to do all the submittals and transmittals and what have you. And it was Karen Joyle, who was our tax collector, and she was amazing at it. I don't know how much that annual budget was. Does anyone remember what she was paid per year? That's kind of what I'm envisioning here.
Yeah, I think it was hourly, relative to ongoing demand. And what was the dollar amount, Christine? Do you recall, per hour?
I'd have to look it up, but she was only putting in maybe 3 hours a week on her timesheet. So I don't know. I really guess that she was volunteering a lot of her time and not necessarily charging the committee back for all of it. But I'd have to go and check back to see how much the hourly rate was on that. And there was also a similar position for the Center for Emergency Services building project as well.
Yeah, so I think maybe we can look at those to see if, because 16 hours a week sounds a lot to me, Brett. I mean, you and certainly correct me if I'm wrong. And like you said, it might fluctuate from week to week. I'm just trying to see that, we had somebody that, did a lot of the small things that you guys really can't get to, and could do that in an efficient manner if you had the right person.
Yeah, that's why. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. I mean,
I was just going to say that's why we based it on the range of 10 to 15 hours a week. Like I said, when you're talking about business visitation, you can, if you're going to see quite a few businesses in one day, it takes some time. But that's why we put the range in there and we put the salary range so we could have a rough idea of what our number would be for this position. I looked at other positions throughout the state that had some part-time positions and throughout the country. And that's where I came up with some of those numbers. Now, we are one of the only commissions that when we were developed in our bylaws, it allows for a paid secretary. We've never asked for that. But that is in our bylaws as well regarding a paid position for EDC when it comes in regards to those kind of things. But
would you envision this person filling that role?
No, I would have them work on, sending out the agenda once I get it, maybe things like that, or what, but I'd hate to waste their time on those kind of things that we're currently doing. That's why we've never asked for that paid secretary position. And Juliet does a lot now. We bounce things back and forth, and she will send out the agenda sometimes, but those are things we can honestly handle. I'd hate to take hours away from them doing that. Would maybe they work on the minutes to get accurate and detailed minutes? That's a possibility because we'd want them at our meeting anyways.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. I would highly disagree with that. I think that the person should be tied to your strategic plan, like whatever initiatives, like pick your main initiatives, your business visitation or your business beautification or your marketing, and focus that person on it. The administration, Nicole is your secretary and she takes your minutes. I look at them, that is in my job description, and I will continue to do that because I want to, I want to oversee all that. I wouldn't waste that person's time on that. Get them,
Okay.
get them going on initiatives that you feel strongly on that will, you know, have a positive return on the town that you really want to accomplish, that business directory, the business visitation, the buy local campaign, you know, get them out there doing that. Don't, because if you tie, you know, if you add administrative duties to a person, you're going to lose the person.
We don't want to tie their hours up in that. And these are things that, I mean, we've spent money on. We had a photographer that took pictures for our last promotional piece, and that bill came in at like $1,500. That, you know, a lot of the stuff that we are now looking to sub out can be done in-house, and that money could be saved where they can be doing a little bit of everything. I mean, if we find the right person, and we have the qualifications in here to try to find somebody that can do a lot with the social media aspect and really promoting North Stonington.
All right, Carolyn has another question. Carolyn?
I had a
Oh,
follow-up.
I'm sorry, Mike. I thought you were done. Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Carolyn. So I'm just trying to see how this rolled, as far as I know, and not to throw Mike Ergo into the mix here. You know, part of what I thought the first selectman's job was to be the person to go out and promote the town business-wise and support new businesses and things of that nature. Is that not something that you guys are coordinating together on, or?
I think what's happened now, Mike, is there's a lot of high level stuff happening, and I'm spending an incredible amount of time on that kind of thing, but it's more infrastructure, coordinating with different, you know, towns or entities or businesses, you know, about what their needs are. As far as like going out and visiting individual businesses, that's not something that I have any time to do.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, I have thoughts about this, but you know, continue.
I'm set. Thank you.
Caroline?
I'm just curious, how many empty storefronts do we actually have in town right now? Do you know the exact number?
Commercial storefronts?
It's 8 o'clock.
You- the building at the Rotary that used to be the medical facility. There's some empty space in Frank Zano's building across the street, but in that same area. Across the street, there's, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3 empty building pads where buildings were, demolished, or I think there was a fire on the Grillo piece where there was a restaurant. Empty pads there. You have some existing residential, one existing vacant residential building that happens to have been rezoned commercial, but I mean, that doesn't quite count. It wasn't, a commercial space.
And we have a lot of potential development in the land. So there's land that's out there and available. I mean, there's proposals right now for a 400 unit complex, for a indoor water park. So there's a lot of things on the horizon that we need to be prepared for.
But vacant commercial space, you have, I'm sorry, the Romanella garage is dilapidated. Brett, help me out here. The Romanella piece, the Zano piece, the Pesh piece, and I think that's it.
Or whatever that's called, the old.
Miles Meters place, but he rents it. So you really don't. I mean, we that was one of the main things I keep saying. We've come to the end of our empty buildings, our vacant buildings. We only have a few left. Obviously one of them is huge, the one at the Rotary, but.
Everything at the truck stop is filled now, all those places are.
One restaurant, you do have one restaurant area where I don't even know what was there. Nothing has lasted in that spot, but the Mexican restaurant was in there briefly.
Everything.
I think they use it for other things, but it could be a big restaurant, yes.
We really have to support those businesses when they do open.
I support all the local businesses. I do go to them. I'm disappointed that El Torito isn't still open.
Really, that's the last thing that we want to see happen on EDC is businesses open up and then close because of lack of support and lack of,
So
what we can do.
Brett, how would you handle poor performance by somebody if you were, I mean,
So
get out there.
I don't have my metrics printed out that we used in the past. But we looked at the amount of visitation. We looked at the growth in those areas. With this position, I think we would monitor also how our strategies that we've come up with are working and how they've been implemented, and how the growth potential has been with that. And that's why it's also a 1099 employee. Or not an employee, but a 1099 position.
All right, I have a couple of questions, if I might. Carolyn, you're all set?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I had one more question. The backup documentation that you had on the screen, are you able to provide that to us so we can print it out and actually like read it? Rather than have it on this, just on the computer screen?
Yeah, I mean, normally if I was coming to your meeting, I always give you that packet that has our all of our annual reports, including EDCs in there, and then each one of our budgets, but I wasn't sure how to do that this year.
We actually, Juliet and I talked about that this morning, about how with Zoom, it's much more difficult to present the budget like we had in the past, because we always had that breakdown like Juliet just had up on the screen, and it's really a lot easier to see it and look at it that way compared to just a spreadsheet that we now.
I think we would anticipate getting that back up.
Well, yeah, I can take care of that tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, just understand that the year-to-dates obviously are moving targets.
We understand that. Yeah. Questions that I might have. Who would be the authority here? I mean, who would be this person reporting to? Would it be?
So they would report to, this position receives direction primarily from Economic Development Commission / chairman, with general supervision from the Planning and Community Development Officer. So it would be the direction from Economic Development and some daily supervision when they're there. They have questions through Juliet. It's kind of, so if you look at Juliet's role in the way that was written, supervision was received under the general direction of Planning and Zoning, Economic Development Commission, and qualified supervision of the first selectman. So that's the difference.
Okay, I mean, having been involved enough in interfacing with our last coordinator, I think one of the issues they always had was how do they represent themselves in terms of what they can say and have knowledge about, and that which they should not be saying.
Yeah, that would definitely be up for discussion with our board and with Juliet, to come up with where we draw the line on things. But working with Sam, when he was the coordinator, I never had an issue where he misrepresented the town or didn't know how to handle it. Like I said, that's why this person isn't going to be handling the larger issues when it comes to some of the development. I mean, Juliet's still going to be that main person for those kind of things. It just gives her a little aid on some of the small stuff that we aren't comfortable asking her to do, and she doesn't have the time for it any longer. Because also at this price point, you're not going to get someone versed in development on the bigger scale. Hopefully we can find someone that's either looking to wind down or semi-retired, or someone younger that is doing this maybe for a few different towns or something. But we had good feedback from when it was the other role as a part-time position. So I'm hoping we can get some good applicants as well for this one.
Juliet, my question is to you, since you're on with us. I mean, relative to what Brett said, I mean, would you see this as beneficial to some of the efforts and initiatives coming out of your office?
Look, I will never reject help. We are doing very well as a town, and there's a lot going on. My only plea is that if another person is hired, we think about exactly what that role is going to be, and it's tied to specific initiatives. That way that person is clear in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And that would make my life easier. Then I know that I don't have to worry about business visitation, that this person has the list. They're going to formalize it. They're going to do whatever they do. And they're going to go out there and they arrange that with the EDC board of what they're going to ask and how they're going to deal with it. I don't want more work on myself supervising. So as long as there's clear goals that that person is assigned, like this is your task, you know, that would be a godsend, sure. You know, it's a difficult decision. There's a lot of needs in town, and you know, if you step into the land use office, you'll notice that we all do like 17 different jobs. I mean, because we are a small town and we have to cross over that way. That's hard to handle. That is hard for somebody experienced could step into that role, no problem. A new person would step into that chaos and be like, whoa, you know, so it's important that, you know, there's the communication is there, that we have a good plan, that this is the initiatives X, Y, and Z that you're going to work on. And I think that would work well. You know, there's further discussions to be had, like of other boards and commissions that might need similar help or marketing initiatives or whatever. I mean, I don't want to pretend that I know what's best for the town staff wise, but any help on economic development or land use, I'll take.
So we, Dan, in regards to that, we did in the past give detailed directions and expectations. So I'll just read you just a few things of the small things when we did get a report. So we would always get a report on ongoing projects and the progress on those. So crafting a draft brochure as part of a marketing material, baseline demographic overview to include marketing materials, build out analysis and inventory of vacant and underutilized properties. So they would have tasks to do, and then they would report back to EDC regarding the answers to those questions and progress being made on them.
That'll be key.
Needless to say, economic development still maintains itself as a top priority in the town. So certainly consideration. Paul, you haven't spoken yet.
Please, just want to disclose first, I am a member of EDC, so I'm going to frame my question kind of carefully. It's probably to Juliet. In your observations, I know I have some, so I'll keep to myself right now, but would you see this role as a game changer? I mean, I know there's been a lot of heat on EDC to maybe the initiatives aren't going through fast enough, or we need to do more, meet up more often. Is this the thing that might bring us over the finish line to really try to get some more momentum in economic development?
Before Julia answers that question, I just want to let the board members know also that Paul hasn't been to an EDC meeting since he's been working with Pfizer on the COVID issue. So he hasn't been privy to really our whole discussion on this. So I don't want anyone to think he's leading a question. I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
Thank you for your work.
I think you have a very valid question, and I think it's directed to Juliet.
Yeah. So here's, again, I'm a planner, so I will disclose that, as you know. So I'm always going to think like a planner first. I think game changer, I'm not sure I would label it that unless you had a plan. So I think there's two game changers. You have a solid plan that everybody's behind, that you have consensus, everybody's behind that plan. Then I think it would be a game changer to have a dedicated person to work on that plan, those initiatives. So it can't be changing. It has to be, if you have the plan and the person, then you would see accomplishments. I do believe you would, with the right person, obviously, but so the two have to come together. And the extra meetings for EDC also helps keep everybody on track. And you do have, you know, a level of supervision from my office as well, or not supervision, but collaboration. I just, you know, it's nice to work with somebody else to work through some things, but you have to have that plan, that person directly tasked to those items on that, you know, the plan could change every year, but whatever you're working on that year tied to your budget. And then I could see some success in the initiatives that were brought forth.
No, I can understand that. A framework of what the person would do has to be in place before you get the right person to pick the right person, right?
Yeah, but it shouldn't be the expectation that you're going to hire this person and suddenly you're going to have 100,000 square feet of new development. That's my job. That's what I do to look at that sort of thing. But that said, if this person's job was to, when COVID lifts, is to go to certain conferences and market our vacant and underutilized parcels in such a way to attract somebody, okay. But we have to have more conversations on what the priorities are.
No, I get you. And as an infrequent member, attendee of the meetings, I have seen some areas where some more help, some more boots on the ground during the day could be of some benefit. So it'll be anxious to see how it works out.
Yep.
Thank you.
For the benefit of all, we've been going about 45 minutes on the EDC presentation. We have other people waiting in the wings. Are we satisfied enough that we can go on to the next presentation? Sarah, did you want to get a last question? And I saw your hand up in the last moment there.
No, it's okay. I think we continue to talk about these things as we go through the weeks, right? So I'm good for now. Thank you.
Good. All right. Next on the agenda, I have planning and zoning. So that comes back to a familiar face. So, and Lou is still on. Is Lou presenting?
I will go, well, as you know, that the land use budget is all combined. So I thought I would go over just, the general rundown of the high level. And then is Bill Ricker on the line too?
It doesn't look like it unless he's on a phone.
Okay, sometimes he likes to, comment. So once I go through the general, then anybody who's here from the individual commissions are obviously certainly welcome to chime in. I'm going to share my budget, and I'm going to jump right to the bottom to do a high level. I'm pretty excited about our budget this year because I have actual good news to report for a change. So overall, we're only asking for a $695 increase, which I think is awesome. We're projecting an $18,000 increase in revenue, and that's on the very low side because we still have a couple solar projects that are waiting in the wings. I want to point out that for the first year, we are in the black with respect to revenue versus expenses, even including salaries this year due to a solar project. And I wanted to take this opportunity to explain why it was a positive thing to incorporate the building department into the land use department. Because had that not happened, that figure would have been $60,000 less. Right. So due to the fact that I was able to communicate with our building official, because we're all in the same office, and Cheryl, we're looking at this, and then we work together to try to figure out, wait a minute, what was the cost of this project? Why are they not giving us this and that? And through a collaborative effort, because we were all aware of it, we were able to correct the amount of fees that were due. And so that landed in quite the windfall. So the good news is we made a lot of money for the first time this year, which we never do. So I wanted to start there because I never actually get to say that. The rest of the budget is exceptionally boring. The only, the big changes is a slight reduction in the attorney line item, which is still sort of, we were debating that the other day because there are a lot of cases out there. It's very hard to predict this time of year because we never seem to get any of the bills in until like June. So I can never tell how much I've used until the last minute, which is nerve-wracking. But you can see in the past that we have used 100% in the past, and we could again, but I think 10,000 is safe enough. It was also hard to determine what we might need for advertising and office expenses because it was a COVID year and there were fewer, bigger applications like site plans or special permits because they're hard to do via Zoom. So I did see a decrease in that. The other major change that I think you'll probably be most interested in is the other area that I desperately need assistance because I am trapped in my office dealing with so many different issues that it's very hard for me to do zoning enforcement inspections. They slip through the cracks, and we can't have that anymore due to some current lawsuits, because small towns tend to take a long time to resolve their zoning matters because they're short-staffed. It's very unfair. We're not doing anything wrong. We just don't have the time or the staff to keep up. So I had suggested that we utilize Wayne Berardi, who's our wetlands enforcement officer, purely to just, when I say to him, this is a complaint I've gotten, could you go out and take the pictures and report back to me, and we'll get it into the computer. So that's what I need some help with. So we were able to reduce the building official's salary down because he doesn't work as many hours as Earl, our previous one, was contracted for. So we were able to offset the increase that Wayne would receive by the decrease in the building official's salary. So that's kind of a wash. We're doing a trial run of that right now because planning and zoning had some leftover or money, unused funds in their contracted consulting line items. So we thought we'd see if it works. So, I mean, I'll have to report on that later, but that would be some much needed relief. The only other budget impact that would have is a tablet for that, for Wayne to have on in the field to be able to enter in what he finds, take pictures from it, whatnot. And that comes with a $540 cost for the cell phone service that you would need, because it's tied to cellular service. But that seems very reasonable, so that was good. There's an increase of $1,000 in the building department budget for the new code books. They have incorporated all of the amendments that they've done over the last 5 years into the book now, so you don't have to go through the code and then flip to the back of the book to try to see if there was an amendment or not. I want to have those books here. I think the building department has made $153,000 this year, so I think we can give them $1,000 for new books. The rest, there's really nothing else exciting to report. The Conservation Commission is their budget item, has remained the same. They do their community calendar. That's usually paid back through the sales. They have 3 membership organizations that they, pay membership dues to for a total of $275, I believe it is. They give away seedlings at the No Stow Fest when that occurs, and they have some money in there for signs. And then remember, affordable housing, wetlands, WPCA, all of them use the general office expense budget above. So they all have some amount of funds that I am aware of in that line item. We have received grants. So the Conservation Commission got a $1,000 grant, and the affordable housing a $4,500 grant. So wherever we can get grants, we do. And kudos to Craig. That was a very good hire, in my opinion. He's done a lot to help us find these grants and secure them. And I really have, I'll answer questions, but it's a good year for the land use department. Income wise, I think I did lowball the projected, let's see what I put in there for the building department. I still kept it at $75,000 just on the off chance that, the 2 other solar projects don't come through, but I think you're going to see another year similar to what we had this year. I think it'll be up in the 150s again, because they just bring in a whopping sum for the permit review fees, usually $40,000 to $50,000 if it's a big siting council project. So, yeah, so we're 93,000 over budget for income so far this year, and we're halfway through. So.
I would start by saying, good job, Juliet.
Yay.
Yeah, it's nice
I
to
never get to say that.
Very good job. Board members, do you have questions for Juliet relative to what's been presented?
You have Sarah Nelson with a hand up.
Sarah?
Thank you, Juliet. Can you explain more about the income? So I just don't I'm a little bit new here, so I just don't understand exactly, but what's accounting for the massive difference between 2 years of in the 60s and then 153?
Right, so the bulk of our revenue comes in the building department because they have many more permits get processed a year than say planning and zoning or just zoning permits. So building permits are based on construction value, and that's how we arrive at the fee. So we've happened to have had several large projects, not just solar projects. Actually, we've had a lot of some new construction. Jason Quinlan with his 40,000 square foot building, or the 27,000 square foot warehouse. Those also bring in quite a bit in construction, in permit fees. But this year we had a very large, the 120 acre solar farm, and their building fee alone was $60,000 or $66,000 because it's based on the total value of that project, which was $7 million. So they had underestimated that by 6 million or something. I mean, it was a gross underestimation. So we fixed that and had that windfall. But I mean, it's just good. It's going to go into your general fund. It's there. It's great. And I think we have 2 others on the way. So that's what accounts for the big difference. I will also, though, that said, when we raise the planning and zoning fees, you can see what a difference that made. So, and it wasn't a huge increase, but between, the last couple of years, we've gone up, quite a bit. So, it makes a little difference, but with our salaries, we can never really earn money in this department. We're just trying to narrow the gap.
And Julia, that's awesome. Thank you. And thanks for breaking it down for me. You said there's 2 more on the way for 2020. What are those? Or in the works, or?
One that's going through the siting council process now. We don't have any say over the big projects. They go through the Connecticut Siting Council and they arrive. So there's one plan for Boom Bridge Road, and then there's a solar company that has bought up quite a bit of property along 184. So I do anticipate a siting council level project there.
And Boom Bridge Road is also solar, so it's all solar?
Yeah, but the Broombridge Road one is actually, that one's pretty benign. It's way back in the back of the field. You'll see it from the highway. It's not on any farmland. That's the only time I really sort of intervene on those. So.
I wasn't worried. I was just curious. That's I didn't realize there were so many solar projects in our town, so that's great. Okay, thank you.
Good and bad.
Any other questions for Juliet? All right, Juliet, I've got a couple. One, again, great job. And, for Board of Finance members, things that she's talking about in terms of permits, fees. I mean, that's all leading into economic development and grand list development. So, I mean, it just continues to go on and on. So it's good stuff. Juliet, you talked briefly about enforcement, and we think about, I mean, as beautiful as our town is, we want to try to make it even more beautiful in terms of areas of blight or complaints. I mean, just give us kind of a picture of what that has looked like over the last 10, 12 months, and what could be done, if necessary, more in that area.
So our biggest struggle for the past 10 years or so has been junk cars and debris and things like that. What's crucial about zoning enforcement is that it has to do with property values, right? So if you have a blighted property next to you, your property value is going to go down, and there's issues with that. The whole commercial services in a residential zone has the same effect a lot of the time too. And so we've tried really hard and have had a lot of success getting down the blighted buildings, to clean up the blighted properties, in hopes that it will lead to new investment in those properties. With buildings coming down, and then a new building can go up. But also it'll, stabilize the property values in that neighborhood. So it's a huge undertaking. It really is a constant battle, but I feel strongly that, property owners have a right, to expect that their neighborhood is residential and orderly and clean. And so I always think it's important to keep up on that. So.
We've had conversations in past years about the potential of a blight ordinance.
Very tricky thing.
What's your view of that?
It's too complicated. It's too subjective. There's very few towns that have been able to write an ordinance that's enforceable and clear. And we've had a lot of success with what we have. It's not an ordinance, but it's a pretty strongly written junk and debris type thing. So knowing what North Stonington is plagued with, it's the junk cars and people hoarding too much stuff on their property, or, parts and debris. We don't have as big a problem with, say, a house that doesn't mow the lawn. We have maybe 3 or 4 houses that I would say are blighted in that way on the main routes. Obviously, I don't know what's happening in the backwoods, and we try to get to them as in a different type of way. So we go after them through the building code or the health code.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to ask the next question. Again, it's for the benefit of the Board of Finance members. I mean, in a blight situation, what leverage do you have other than hopefully developing a constructive dialogue with either the entity or the individual?
Well, I have the law on my side there, but as far as like picking up the yard and the junk and the cars and stuff like that, we take that. Now we move as fast as we can and get them into the court system, and we have fines, that we can levy.
Okay.
It's a little trickier with the buildings, because if you condemn it or tell them they have to take it down, they have a certain amount of time to do it. And if they don't, then you get to do it. The town has to pick up that tab and lien the property. So.
Okay. All right, good. Anybody have questions relative to that? It's an important piece. We're trying to do the best we can to keep residential property values up and increasing. And this is a contributing factor. So, yeah.
Dan, I just want to, if I could, I don't have any questions on the budget. I just want to thank Juliet for the work she's put in, and just recognize the fact that, she's really done a tremendous job, as evidenced by our economic development, indicator. She leads that department. And really what she has to deal with, and what have been some trying times over the last couple of years, some of these, not only is she trying to promote the town, which she's doing a good job of, but, people come at her hard sometimes for the job that she has to do, and she's just doing her job. And I just have to commend the way she does handle herself as a professional, and, has to just really do some tough work every single day. So I think we're very fortunate to have Juliet on the team here. And obviously I always speak highly of the triad with Christine and Juliet, but really, I think it's nice to see the work that Juliet put on. She kind of spearheaded the idea of putting the land use in one budget, and you're seeing that now, the dividends of that, and now we're seeing a budget that's, we're getting a lot done and not having to see really increases on it. So just want to recognize that while she's here.
Thank you.
We work together as a team well, and that's nice to have multiple people there to support.
Again, Juliet, great job. And
thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, sometimes, you're the welcomer and the cop all in one.
Sometimes on the same day with the same person. Yeah.
Dan, I have a hand up from Lou. I don't know if we want to let him speak as the chair of planning and zoning.
Of course. Lou, if you want to come on.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
We gotcha.
All right. All I want to do is second what Mike said. He kind of stole my thunder. But Juliet has been very helpful and with our department and our commission, and moving it forward. And I can't thank her enough for all she's done for us. And and she's done a great job, I think, of combining the different departments and having them all work together. And it doesn't just, it benefits us on the planning and zoning side to know what the building official's seeing and that kind of stuff. So again, thanks a lot, Julie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lou. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and Lou, we would commend you too as chair. I mean, you kept a very steady hand on the rudder, and you have legacy, and your contribution to the town does not go unrecognized.
And he stepped in to help me quite a bit this year too. Tough case.
And I know it's probably a well-worn phrase, but we've come a long way in the last 10 years as a town. And it's been a matter of people being very committed to what they're doing, either in full employment, professionally speaking, and certainly the volunteers that have put in years and lots of time to bring a lot forward. We thank them all. Any other questions for Juliet? Sarah, did you have one? Sarah?
I'm just going to channel Caroline for half a second and ask if we can get the backup to the data that she shared on the screen as well.
I'll put together the packet I usually give and make some copies. And
yeah, Christine will help out getting that to everybody. Christine, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're concluded then, Juliet?
Yeah.
All right.
I hit everything.
Thank you very much. Just a time check. It's just a few minutes after 8:30. And next I have up is Public Works.
All right, I just have to promote Donnie to panelist, so give me one moment.
You can demote me again.
I'm going to.
I'll listen, but I'm going to go cook dinner.
Donnie, are you up?
He is switched over. He just turned his camera on.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, good evening, everybody. I apologize for not being shaven, but I've been kind of busy the last few days anyways. I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want to go line by line on the budget, or you just want me to go hit the parts increased or decreased?
Yeah, I think if you first start with, the template, the cover piece,
right?
Changes that might exist and things that you feel are a change or things that you think are needed in the next fiscal year. So,
okay, Christine, do you have the pamphlet up? Because I don't have that capability on my phone.
I mean, they all have it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start with the first item, which on mine is the highway foreman. Everybody have that one?
So if you look at the budget spreadsheet that I sent out, that's what the document that Donnie's referring to.
So the 2706 is the first one. Everybody starts there. So there was an increase there for, it's a contractual agreement for the 2%, which matches the other employees with the union contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That was an increase there. And then the second item down on wages also increased because of the contractual agreement with the employees, unions. No increase all the way down to 2701, which is the state aid improvement of town roads. That was a reduction of $3,883, that's beyond our control. That's what the state gives us. Coming down further to 2709, which is supplies. I'm asking for an increase there due to the money we've had to spend on COVID. Safety shoe increase with the union contracts, and then also the cleaning supplies for the buildings that we're maintaining. Next line item down on the town property maintenance. We've increased on town property buildings, so I'm asking for an increase on that, just because of the buildings that we have now taken over, and I'll elaborate that further on the next line item. 2711, which is town property maintenance labor. That was a line item that I took out after the employee was no longer working part-time. I'm trying to get that replaced because of the amount of buildings that we've taken over. Just to give you an idea, we now have the CES Center for Emergency Services building, the property. We maintain the building and the grounds around it. The rec building, which used to be the old firehouse, we now maintain that building, all the interior, exterior, and all the property surrounding it. The old high school property now we've taken over. We're going to be maintaining both the inside of the building and the property around it, to include the Wheeler Library, mowing the grounds around that. Hewitt property, we mow the property and also assist at the 1750 house, the senior center, and all the property around that. Both town halls, properties, we maintain the buildings, and we also maintain the property around that. Town green, we take care of the groundskeeping on that. Transfer station, the old schoolhouse property out of East Clarks Falls Road, we maintain the grounds on that. So that, right as of right now, I'm having to do Fridays, take the whole crew and just go around and try to hit each one of these areas instead of doing road work. We're out there maintaining these properties. So if I had a part-time person like we had before, I believe it was between 25 to 30 hours a week to do the maintenance part of this, especially the groundskeeping. That would take a lot off the shoulders of the guys that I have now, and my Fridays wouldn't be tied up doing these buildings. Coming down further, contractual services didn't change. The next change is at tipping fees, which we go through this every year. We're going to be, looks like we're going to be a shortfall of $20,000 this year on the tipping fees. It's just because it's costs more money to burn garbage. We're not going to Preston anymore. We are running all the way up to Lisbon, the incinerator up there, and that's where the contract's at as far as our garbage hauling. Coming down further, the last one, I believe the increase is for contractual agreements, and that's the transfer station wages. Everything else remains the same.
I just want to point out one thing on the revenue side for the public works budget. We are increasing the amount we budgeted for tipping fees, but we do get back revenue from the private haulers in town. So we have increased a corresponding amount on the revenue side for that.
Any questions for Donnie? Paul Simon, please.
Yeah, please, Donnie, how are you tonight?
Good, good.
I noticed you said that you're maintaining a number of newer or more buildings than you have in previous. Do you have a number of those buildings? How many more? Is it 2 or is it 10?
Yeah, so the buildings that we've taken over now, the CES building, we didn't have that up until it was built and established. So I'd say in the last 2 years, I believe that's up. We started maintaining that. The newest parts is the old high school. We're going to be not only maintaining the building inside, assisting with whatever we can in there, but also maintaining the property around that. In addition to that, we've also incorporated the Wheeler Library grounds, mowing that. So that's new this year also.
So it's mostly mowing, other than the old high school, that you have to go inside and do some
mowing, snow removal, shoveling a little bit of sidewalks there, stuff like that. Yes.
Okay.
And he also mentioned previously the rec center that we are responsible for as well.
Right. We always took care of the rec center, but we never had to mow the grounds around it because it was the fire department at the time. They took care of that. But we also maintain the inside of the rec building, and we've done a lot of improvements. I don't know if you've noticed it, the outside of it, but we've also done improvements to the inside as far as painting the whole building inside and having the floors done.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm unable to pull up your spreadsheet. What was the overall budget increase you were requesting?
I've got it at 80,455.
Thank you.
Brett, you've got a question, then Dan Smith, I'll come to you next.
So, Donnie, in this, are we taking away the B27101 where we track the middle high school separately?
So Brett, that wasn't Donnie that did that B27.10. That was just because there wasn't a line item to put those expenditures into for the operation of the old school. So we are going to be creating a new line item that does not fall within Public Works for that. So that's why it's not a part of his budget.
Okay, so, but part of the property maintenance in here is for that building?
The normal things that would come out of Public Works for any of the buildings that are owned by the town.
Okay.
So not any of the utilities for the building or preventative maintenance things that we're doing, but if something were to break, yes.
Right, so like on the cover sheet, some of the unexpected expenses for this year were the repair the entryway, hallway, paint hallways, that kind of stuff will still fall under this line item in the future if anything's needed.
That would fall under 2710, correct? That would be the $10,000 increase.
Okay. All right, thanks, Donnie.
Dan Smith?
That was the question I had.
Okay,
I yield.
all right.
Mike
anyone else?
Anderson has a digital hand up.
Who's that?
Mike Anderson has a digital hand up.
What? Gotcha, Mike.
I noticed Brett doing it, so I thought it would be cool. Plus my hand was up too high. Donnie, kind of going to Brett's point, do you have, if you're asking for this new part-time person, do you have an idea as to how the breakdown would be per building for what he needs to do? Like how much goes to CES, how much to the old high school as opposed to the old middle school, and then to the Wheeler Library and Rec Center? Do you have it kind of broken down as to?
Yeah, I do track the man hours. I believe Carolyn, I sent Carolyn an older one, but I have an updated one I could give you. But we do track all the man hours, the amount of time we spend doing the maintenance, doing the mowing. We also haul the trash for the CES building, the Center for Emergency Services building. We bring their trash to the transfer station as well as the two town halls and the rec center. That's part of our, every Wednesday we have to run trash for them.
Sure. And the question is, there's obviously going to be talk during this budget season and throughout the years about, the added cost to this town for the existing middle school and existing high school. So I just think it's relevant to know how much added maintenance, to do the lawn around there. I know the 10,000 is for anything interiorly, but for, to maintain the lawns around there, so we have a breakdown, we can tell the townspeople exactly what this increased cost is.
Yeah.
How much relates to each part.
Yeah, I have it all broken down for each building. I can get it to you.
All right.
Mike, you're asking for a projection moving forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, based upon past use,
okay.
What he thinks this new person, he's asking for $32,381 additional. What is this person? How are they going to break down to per building? That's kind of what I'm envisioning, because I think people are going to want to know.
Yeah, as far as a day-to-day thing, it would the maintenance part of it would fall on the person. As far as interior or exterior mowing would be a weekly thing. As far as hours, it would be a schedule set up per department as it needed to be, as the property needed to be mowed or weed whacked, or interior of the building cleaned, like the rec center. Every once in a while, it has to be mopped and cleaned inside of it. So. That would be part of the job too, but I do track all that and I have it all already on a spreadsheet.
Okay, great.
Dan Smith, you're next.
Excuse me. Yeah, Donnie, has the increased workload between running garbage, maintaining all the properties, and everything resulted in you having to use overtime to cover all of this excess work that you have?
No, I'm able to squeeze it in with what I just have to put other jobs off that I would like to get done because I've got to do this on certain days. So if I was freed up to do these other jobs like drainage or something else, I wouldn't have to plan it, skip a day to do it. If an emergency came up, I'd have to, it's not, the grounds thing is not something that's got to be done, but we planned on doing it every Friday. So I had the whole crew out there, 5 guys trying to get caught up on the grounds.
Okay. I just had a question. Thanks.
Yeah, but none of it has ever generated any overtime. I've always worked around that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Brett, I'll come to you next.
Donnie, with the recent snowstorm, have we dipped into the overtime for snow removal yet?
Oh yeah, we've had 2 back-to-back storms. Both of them were overnighters. So there was from one of them was from 3 o'clock in the afternoon all the way to the next day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But their time only counts for snow removal when their original shift ended. So that was I can't remember what day it was on. It was on a weekday. So their regular shift ended at 3, and they started overtime till 7 the next morning. So yes, we have. And then this last storm, we went 2 nights over.
Gotcha. Now, was that in a different? I just don't see the prior years, like the actuals for 2019. Was that in a different line item back then?
No, it was always the same. I believe when Sean was the selectman, he changed it over to the current position where it says snow removal.
But the way that OpenGov is, the way that it's subbed out, for some reason, it doesn't transfer over into this report. So when we do the next version of the budget that looks like the old versions of the budget, I'll manually put in all of the actuals so that we know that they're right. But for some reason, certain lines, just the way they're coded, they don't show up.
So is that a number we usually spend pretty much?
No, actually, it's I think last year I gave back almost $52,000 in either wages and overtime that we didn't use because of the snow stuff.
Okay. And then my next question is, this isn't really, I guess, a question for you, Donnie, but when it comes to like the COVID increase for supplies and cleaning, is there anywhere else that we would put that and try to get grant money for it? Now, I know it would be coming in under revenue under a different source, but if it's one-time purchasing or something due to COVID, is there a different area so it doesn't have to encroach on his budget?
Well, go ahead.
Let me answer this one. So we have to spend it out of the appropriate line item. So if it's cleaning supplies that we're purchasing to clean the town hall, it comes out of the town hall operating expense line. If it's supplies that are being purchased for public works to clean the transfer station or areas that they're responsible for cleaning, then it has to come out of his budget. And then if we find that we have overages at the end, we will request transfers with the grant funds that we've received from the line item that came in into the appropriate expense line.
Okay, so there's no like COVID line item somewhere for.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Dan Smith, I'm back to you.
I like this whole little raising hand thing, little button. I do like that. Hey, Donnie, how are our roads doing right now? What is the plan this year for either chip sealing or repaving using the funds that we got?
We're looking to do some more work over on Kingswood, Meadowwood, and also on Cedar. Hopefully by July this coming year, I'd like to have at least Cedar completely done, and then Kingswood and Ravenwood done over there. I have a 4-year plan to get that done. So
how are we looking at with that 4-year plan right now? What year are we in that, and how are we looking at?
We're in year 2.
Okay.
So we're looking pretty good. I mean, we were hoping to keep more in there from the LOSIP money, but the state didn't give us what we were looking for on there. But we should be good.
All the catch basins and road drains and everything are in good shape. I know, like in the past, you guys have done a great job going through and replacing a lot of those.
We have. I believe you live over on Cedar Crest, correct?
Pinecrest, but I know, like I think it was last year, the year before, you did the culvert in Babcock. you know,
Right.
was needed to be done. But, you know, there's other places, especially like northwest corner and everything up in that part of the town where, you know, it's out pretty much in the boonies, so it needs to be taken care of. I was just wondering as a whole.
Yeah, just so you know, northwest corner, all the metal pipes up there have been changed with the exception of 2. I was on that project, and I do have a list of all those pipes when they were changed, at the dates, and when we finished those projects. We did what's called an outfall project. Myself and the assistant went out and inspected every single pipe, the ones that were metal, that were marked, ones that the bottoms look rotted out on. We put them on a hot list, so we know which ones to go back and look at. There was a couple on Hollowell that we're going to have to replace, but I think I can get at least 2 more years out of them. And we did one inspection over on Kingswood, I believe over by Mr. Murphy's house, and the pipes over there, it's like every pipe in that development. They didn't joint them together. They jointed them like this. So we got some movement in the pipes, but that's not a big issue. So talking to the guys, it was done way before me. The guys at the shop is that whole area is like that. So we try to keep an eye on it the best we can. But as far as the drainage, I think we're looking pretty good. We just had all those drains sucked out not last year, the year before. And part of that job, and when they suck those drains out, they come back to me with a report for either blocks missing or holes or anything that's wrong with that catch basin. They come back to us with that report.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Brett, do you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I do. I do like it, so we don't have to keep our hand waving in front of the screen. It works well. I just want to say, Donnie, I think you guys do a great job in the highway department, especially your employees. They're dedicated and hardworking for the town. I think the public sometimes forget about how many miles of roads we have in North Stonington and how spread out we really are. And for your department, the size of it is to manage all that, it's the work shows when you drive through other towns and then you hit our town. You can see it in the roads. You can see it in the snow removal. I noticed that over the past few days. So I just wanted to say thanks to your department on that. My question is, so I know the speed bumps have been approved by the selectmen. Is that something that's coming out of this current year budget, or is that in here somewhere?
It's going to be part of, it'll come out of the either state improved roads, town roads, or town road maintenance, one of those two.
So Brett, it will be this year. It will be before June 30th.
Okay, so 2021. Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
All right, I've got a question, Donnie. Again, I would compliment your team on doing a great job, particularly during the storms. The roads look great, and I see very few mailboxes down. So, in fact, I haven't seen any. And if I'm correct, I think we have 56 miles of town roads in town, so considerable. Relative to our transfer station, and I probably would draw in selectmen here if necessary. You know, in the past, we had put forward a fee for people to bring their trash to the transfer station, which was short-lived. But the fact is, you know, the cost of disposing of our trash in town is going up. And, you know, I don't know if that's something that could be looked at again or even thought about in terms of the administration of the town.
Well, everything right now is depending on SCARA, and obviously those of you who don't know, SCARA handles all of our trash, recycling, air conditioners. They do everything for us. And every month I go there, or every whatever quarter I go there, they lose about $1 million because of either recycling or whatever. They can't maintain that forever. They have about $150 million in the bank, but they can't maintain that type of loss forever. So eventually something's going to have to be done. And as of right now, we're just waiting to see what happens on their end. We have to go with whatever SCARA tells us to go with.
Dan, there's been a lot of discussion around this topic regionally and statewide. It is a huge problem. You know, it's a cost that towns don't realize. that they have. I mean, we don't realize it, especially because we let everyone just go and get rid of their garbage for nothing at the transfer station. But it's going to be one of these things. The Piper is going to come to call on this. The state has just sponsored a really big initiative, this coalition of sustainability management, led by Commissioner Katie Dykes, and they just wrapped up these work groups to talk about a lot of different ways to try to combat this issue. I know that locally here, Dave Aldridge with SCARA has been really proactive. In fact, talking about the potential for food waste, a food waste plant that basically we could do some recycling there. And that's something that I've talked to him about. So there's some things that are going to have to change, not just for North Stonington, but everywhere as it relates to this. There's nothing in this budget yet about that. However, again, I told you at the beginning, the selectmen haven't even, had any discussions about anything yet. So, we'll be talking about a number of things.
Yeah, I think in the budget process, it sets a blueprint for the next fiscal year, but it also should be strategic in nature and be provocative in saying, okay, what is coming down the pike? What do we see in terms of trend lines that are hurting us and are not benefiting us? And certainly waste disposal is one of them. So
That's correct.
Yeah. Any other comments? Dan, are you back up? I see your virtual's up. Okay, Dan Smith.
Yeah, Donnie, speaking of transfer station, how many years are we away from having to cap that per EPA?
I haven't really had an inspection on it in a while. From usually DEP was coming down pretty frequently up until about, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They haven't been out since. So we're looking at probably 10 to 15 years.
Okay. What do you know? Kind of a spitball cost on something like that we would have to endure on that?
I have no idea. As far as if we would have to have it professionally done or if we could do it ourselves. I don't know. I wasn't there when they did the first cap on the first part of that transfer station, but I know they can be pretty pricey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah, relative to that, for most who might not know, sorry about that. There we go. We are probably one of just a handful of towns that has a functional landfill site.
It's 9 o'clock.
So it's just saying that this is all coming, and we have to be thinking about how we culminate that activity, particularly in terms of what the cost to the town may be.
Yeah, I believe we're one of two still that have the landfill operation, but it's coming to a head.
And what I would say relative to that, Donnie, it's been well managed, so kudos in that regard. Mike?
I just want to commend Donnie as well. He's really run a really good operation, as was already mentioned here with the crew. We're really fortunate to have an excellent crew, and for the Board of Finance's, information, if you hadn't noticed, basically since I've been here anyways, I mean, we've made some reductions in the highway line, and actually we've had substantial givebacks from that line. So that's been a big reason that our undesignated fund has been able to grow as well. I think we are at a point where, we definitely, some of these things that Donnie's bringing forward are justified. But he's managed things very well. We're very fortunate with the team and the players that we've added to the team lately. So just, excellent job, Donnie, and just thanks for the presentation and all the work, and pass that on to the crew, especially in these snowy days where these guys are working real long hours, and seems like it's always coming on the weekend, and and they're just there for us. So very appreciative.
Thank you.
Donnie, maybe you can just tell the Board of Finance members, I mean, the information is out there, but what does your team consist of? Just so they have a sense of numbers and, how their responsibilities are laid out.
So it's myself and then an assistant foreman. We both are working position, which is rare in a highway department, to have an assistant foreman and a foreman be in a working position, because most unions will not allow them to even pick up a tool.
That's right.
So we're fortunate. You're fortunate that way that they allow us to do that. We have I increased it to 5 operators because those of you that are on Board of Finance have been there a while know that we were getting a lot of overtime coming out of the transfer station on a Saturday. So I have 2 operators that work on one works a Tuesday through Saturday, and the other operator is up there Tuesday through Saturday also. So if one operator takes the time off, then I'm covered under our union contracts that we have 2 operators up there. So we don't have to bring anybody in for overtime. So I've been able to save money there as far as the overtime. We have 5 truck drivers, I believe, an assistant mechanic and a mechanic. And hats off to our new mechanic. The new mechanic we have is not afraid to tackle any of these big jobs that we're normally sending out to get repaired. He does them himself. Just for instance, we had springs on a truck that broke down. That's normally about a $5,000 job, and he did it there at the shop for about $2,000. So hats off to him. He's not afraid to jump in there and do stuff that we weren't getting done before we had to send out. So we've got a really good crew. Those of you that have been here for a while know that we had a tough crew before. I ended up eliminating 2 people who people said I couldn't get eliminated, but they were cancer in the department, and we were able to get rid of them. And now we've got some young blood. You guys have seen the young people walking around on the job, and hopefully they'll be here a while.
Donnie, is there any safety training that is ongoing? I mean, I haven't seen your backup, but in the past, I haven't seen anything in that area.
Yeah, we normally have an employee safety handbook that we had to do when we went through the OSHA requirement that we had to do. Each employee gets those, and they're required to have the book to fall back on if they needed any safety stuff. As far as the tree stuff, we actually had a couple of guys go through a flagging class about 2 years ago. And as far as the tree work stuff, Eversource hasn't been doing anything with COVID, so we weren't able to get anything done. We do a bloodborne pathogen class that they do have to do per OSHA, but we haven't been able to get that done either because of the COVID stuff. So we're looking to get back to that stuff when we can.
I've only got, it's kind of an editorial comment, but the transfer station. I use the transfer station. The crew there is always very accommodating, do a great job, and it's spotless, relative to the traffic. What I would add, though, is many people pull their vehicle into the garage to unload and never turn their vehicles off. And I just think about your workers; they're breathing that air morning to night. And people should, I don't know if we need to put up a sign, but people should think about turning off their engines.
Well, if they see them up there doing it, or if you see them up there doing it, you can tell Donna or Willie and them that they would tell them to go ahead and shut it off. I mean, since I've been here, I think I've suspended 5 people from using the transfer station, if you can believe that, for giving the people problems. And what I usually do is give them a letter suspending them for 30 days that they can't use the transfer station. And either I'll hand deliver it, or I'll have a trooper hand deliver it. So we do take action on people that want to argue with them up there, or people that want to give them a hard time, because we have that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And they have to understand it's a privilege, and it's not a God-given right. So unfortunately, we've had to do that.
Thanks for adding those comments. Any other questions for Donnie?
I've definitely yelled at people up there for not.
So you feel the same way I do, Mike? Yeah, I see.
Oh my God. I was right on one kid. I was like, he had a diesel too. I was like, really, dude?
Yeah.
He's been running for 10 minutes in here.
Yeah.
Choking me out.
We talk about signage. I think having a sign up there would help, Donnie. At least you can say, did you see the sign?
Yeah, well, if you notice driving in, there's about 50 signs that they don't pay attention to, but I can put more up there.
Yeah. Well,
If you,
my concern to your people there, because I mean, they're great workers.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate the comment. I'll let them know.
All right. And Donnie, thanks. I think we're all set, everybody, with Donnie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, we'll
Thanks,
look for
Don.
backup that we may not have. So thank you. Next is Wheeler Library. And I'm sorry you've had to wait this long for those who are representing the library. Time right now is 9:06.
Okay, I see Kate. So Kate, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And then is Amy Kennedy? If so, can you just raise your hand and then I will promote you.
If you can promote Marietta Anderson.
Yep, absolutely.
And for Wheeler Library, I would preface again, sorry that you're last on the list. It wasn't intended. It's just how it went down on paper. And so thanks for waiting.
Not a problem. I don't see my video. Oh, I have to start my video. There it is. Okay. All right. Well, we are very grateful to have the opportunity to present. Thank you very much. I'm Kate Parento, the president of the Board of Trustees for the library, and I'm going to be joined by Marietta, who's also a trustee. And our comments are brief. Needless to say, it's been a challenging year for everyone. COVID-19 certainly presented Wheeler Library with challenges we never dreamed of solving. From our first COVID response meeting, Amy Kennedy, our library director of 30 years, stated that it was her hope the library could stay open in a safe way and continue to serve the public in some capacity. And that's what we did. Amy and her staff created a safe working environment and then, like so many of us, flexed her thinking. Initially, we offered a very popular and successful curbside pickup service where patrons could place an order for books, DVDs, audiobooks, jigsaw puzzles, etc., and have them ready for them in a clean personal bag outside the library. In addition, as it was springtime at the beginning of COVID, our seed lending library, which has always been popular, was heavily used as residents took up gardening in a more robust way than in years past. And we also offered complimentary tomato plants and an online tutorial on planting and successfully harvesting tomatoes in North Stonington. And in partnership with Firefly Farm, we offered complimentary soil. As for the kids, we were able to provide multiple activities for young children, and many of them were interactive, which was a big help to parents with young children at home. We were a place that offered masks and education and ongoing information on COVID-19. And later we offered appointments for in-person visits. And as things opened up, we offered a safe building with all health protocols in place. So patrons began to come in again and use our computers and Wi-Fi and make copies and to fax. As Amy had hoped, we did not close the library during the pandemic. And for many, many months, we were the only library in Southeastern Connecticut that was open and offering services to the community. Its community, I should say. And last year, during the budget process, we approached the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen for $75,000, and we received $55,000, which was a $25,000 increase over the previous year. And we were very grateful for this increase, and we felt it was a good step toward moving in the right direction. This year, we have an operating budget gap of $80,000, which is why we feel this amount is a reasonable request from the town for the 2021-2022 budget. So Marietta is going to have a few words. Are you muted, Marietta?
There we go. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
It's a pleasure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. It's a pleasure to be speaking with everyone, and we are very grateful and encouraged by the partnership we have with the town. As Kate mentioned, we all know what a treasure and a resource the library is for our town. COVID was a stark reminder of what an important role the library plays in the lives of North Stonington residents, especially as we are not a community with multiple resources, and the library is a place that is truly for everyone. We hear it called the town treasure by so many, both because of the beautiful building, but also because of all the library has to offer its townspeople. As Kate mentioned, our library is unique in terms of our relationship to the town budget. Statistics from the Connecticut State Library show that North Stonington is in the bottom 4% in terms of town financial support. Last year, we shared the link to this data, and we'll send it again after this evening's meeting, as well as our forecasted budget for 2021-2022, which shows a gap of more than $80,000 in our operating budget. That's why we are requesting $80,000 from the town to close the gap. In addition, we're hoping the town will consider increasing the contribution to the library to keep pace with what other municipalities are doing in the state of Connecticut. Wheeler Library is the cultural center of our town. Our board is very active and invested in not only maintaining our beautiful building, but in building community within its walls. We are looking forward to building our future together with the town.
Thanks, Marietta. And last, we're very excited to mention that the library is embarking on a renovation project that will ultimately allow us to offer more services, more programming, and a more flexible use of our existing space, as well as enhanced outdoor space that will be, as always, free and open to all. And this effort is a separate campaign, and it's not related to our daily operation. And it doesn't affect our budget request for fiscal year 2021-2022. We will be communicating to the public more about this, about our ongoing efforts in this renovation project in the upcoming months and year ahead. And we just want to thank you for the time to remind all of you what a treasure our library is and how much we not only appreciate the support from our town, but how much we value our partnership, and we look forward to continuing our positive and productive relationship. And that's our presentation. And if anyone has any questions, we'd love to field them.
Thank you, Kate. Needless to say, I think all of us, feel like-minded relative to how we see the importance of the library as being a center to our community. So, questions for Kate from the Board of Finance members? All right, Paul Simon.
Please.
And Mike Anderson.
Thank you for talking with us tonight, ladies. I appreciate that. The $80,000 that you're requesting, is that new dollars or 25 above the 55 you received last year?
That would be a total of $80,000. So the 25 above last year.
Thank you very much.
All set, Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Mike Anderson, you're recognized.
Thank you. And for full disclosure, as Brett was talking about earlier, Marietta and I are related, as she is married to my brother, and we have not talked about anything with regard to Wheeler Library as it pertains to my position on this board. Great job, everyone. And yes, the Wheeler Library is just an amazing hub for this town. Now, if we do not do this extra funding, does that, you have to close the gap with your endowment funds? Is that right, Kate?
That's correct.
How is that endowment doing right now? Are you using that endowment to do this other project, or is that done with other grants?
So the endowment is doing well, as I think all investments are right now. To answer your question about how we use the endowment, I've been on the board for 10 years, and it's only been quite recently, I think 2 years ago was the first time we actually tapped the endowment to go toward our operating budget. And that's because we had other monies that were available from other projects and funding that we were able to use to continue to help close our gap. We do need to use the operating budget to close our gap now. And in terms of this other project, the renovation project, which is a completely separate effort, We do intend that we will be using a portion of the endowment to fund that, as well as a Connecticut State Library grant, and as well as private fundraising. And also we will be probably reaching out to the town for monies toward that project as well, separate from the budget.
Okay. So am I correct in that when you guys asked for $75,000 last year, and I think you got
55.
55 from us?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you had to use the endowment this year. Did you have to use the endowment this year to close your budgetary gap for operating expenses for this fiscal year?
Yes, we did.
You're all set, Mike?
I am.
Kate, is there an established spending rule for the endowment?
We do have, yeah, the answer to the question is yes.
Okay. Mike, or go, okay, I saw your hand. Yeah, Mike, go ahead, then Sarah, you'll be next.
So thank you guys for the presentation and for all that you do. I'm just wondering, there was some COVID monies that became available, I think, this year for libraries. So you were able to get some level of a grant, I think, this past year. And even with that, you still had to use the endowment over this past year.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah,
Correct.
we did apply for the PPP loan, and we did receive a PPP loan, which goes toward wages primarily, and some utilities is what that loan was for.
I think there was another I thought there was other funds too that were made available to libraries besides the PPP, but
well, there was another grant that we received, and it had to be for enhancements to the library, and they were outside of the scope of our operating budget, how those monies were spent.
Okay. Thank you.
Carolyn Howell, excuse me, Sarah, I think you were next.
I didn't have a question. Go, yeah,
Carolyn Howell.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much for what you do for the community. I love the library. I think it's a great place. I was just curious, you just mentioned the PPP loan. Are you able to apply for the one that just became available now again, the second?
We discussed it, and we made the decision not to apply for it for reasons that had to do with covering staff.
Mm-hmm.
Our staff has decreased during COVID, so it didn't make sense for us to apply to it the second time.
Okay. And then when you are doing the renovations that you're planning to do, is the library going to be able to remain open during that? Or is it something where you're going to have to shut down for a period of time?
I think that there will be some periods of time where we can't be open, but it's the type of project where we probably will be able to people will be able to have access to parts of the library while other parts of the library being worked on. That's our goal. But we are going to be renovating both the lower level and the first floor. The second floor, and we're bringing a completely new climate control system into the building. So we'll have air conditioning on the second floor, the top floor. So of course, while all of this is going on, there'll definitely be times when it's going to be difficult to access the building.
Right, Mike Anderson, and then Brett. Mike, go ahead.
Oop, Mike went away.
Sorry.
There he is.
Hit too many buttons to try to lower my hand. So Kate, were you able to get loan forgiveness for that first round of PPP?
We spent everything. So is that what you're asking?
Were you able to get the loan forgiveness for what you took out?
I'm not sure if I understand what that means.
Well, the PPP was supposed to be a forgivable loan.
Yes, and we did get it as a forgivable loan. Yes.
Okay. And I just want the public to know, or that to qualify for PPP, you have to have maintained or, from the last fiscal year, the same amount of employees, and you said you had to let people go or less people
No,
work?
we didn't. It wasn't letting people go. It was that there was reduced hours. There were, we were spreading the staff out differently. So it was just during the course of the PPP loan, we had the same amount of staff that we had prior to getting the loan. It's just that now the way we're staffing the building is different than how we were doing it before.
Okay.
And I could just add to that, Mike, we believe it will be forgiven. It hasn't been forgiven yet, but we think it will be.
Okay. And that's always a consideration, obviously, when you're deciding whether to take another PPP loan out. If you're not sure that it's going to be forgiven, then it's a liability on your books.
You all set, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Brett, you're next.
I just want to say the library is a great resource for the town. It's a focal point for our town and our community, which, when it comes to not even just the library, but the events that are able to be held there. So I just can't stress that enough of how important the Wheeler Library is to North Stonington. I guess some of my questions were already answered that I originally raised my hand for, because Mike asked about the COVID-related grants. The renovation plan that you guys embarked on years ago, so that's complete. You just said that's completely separate from these operating expenses and the deficit that you're seeing right now. Is that?
The renovation project that we're talking about is a new renovation project that will begin this year, actually. We've put out an RFQ and we have awarded the work to an architect. And we're in the process of applying for the Connecticut State Library grant.
Question, do you have any kind of data on how many people visit the library? I'm obviously not with COVID going on, but prior, of how many people and how many residents utilize the facility at all?
Yeah, we do have all that information. I don't have it off the top of my head. I know Amy is, on this meeting, but I don't know if she's got stats on the top of her head at this moment either. But that is all information that we keep track of. Circulation is a big statistic. How many things are taken out, and then also we're part of an interlibrary loan system. So that's another statistic about how many materials we're getting from other libraries and offering to our town residents.
And I know prior to COVID, the elementary school used to take trips there weekly. That's still something they've done up until COVID, I take it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the partnership we have with the elementary school is very important. And part of what our goals are with this renovation project that we're doing is to partner and bring in, many more people from our town from different groups. And so programming is a big part of that. And but one area that has always been very strong at the library is the children's programming. We have a new children's librarian, and she's been amazing through COVID in providing all of these programs for kids remotely. There's been online reading, and she's done a lot of, I'm sure you've seen in town, those little scavenger hunts, that you follow your way to the library, and there's crafts and things like that. So our children's programming and our relationship with the school also, continues to be an important part of the library.
Thank you for that. With the renovations that you guys are currently going to do, will that help you market your event space up top more and utilize that more?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Having climate control on the second floor is going to allow us to use that room year round. It's such a gorgeous room and has so many opportunities for public events. And we can't use it in the summer months because it's just too hot. And so that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, my wife yelled from the other room when she overheard that you're getting air conditioning upstairs. 'Cause
Woohoo!
she always talks about how beautiful that space is up there for events. So, all right, yeah, that's the only questions I had for you. Thank you.
Sarah Nelson, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. Just first, I'll sort of echo what everybody else said, and thanks for all the great things you've done with the library. And I sorry, as someone who needs some library help.
Is that a little library user?
Yeah, she's a little library user. They love the dollhouse. So you mentioned a couple times that the percentage, I think you or Marinette mentioned the percentage that is covered by the town is we're in the bottom 4%. Can you give a little bit more color around that? I'm just curious, like what percentage, how is that calculated? Is that like percentage of support from the town to the budget, and what would be like a mid-range number? So if we're in the bottom 4% and we're supporting 3% of your total budget, or 10%, or just some rough order of magnitude, just to understand what the $80,000 makes up versus, you know, how that's comparable.
So Marietta, do you want to take that?
I'm looking it up as we speak, so I can answer it. Let me see if I can find it.
Until you find it, I was just going to say the 80,000 isn't directly related to the 4% number. The 80,000 is what our gap is in our operating budget.
Yeah, I was trying to tie, I guess, an understanding of 80,000 represents. So I'm assuming the number Marianetta is looking up is towns support X amount of a budget. So what are we supporting? Like what's the what would the 80,000?
Yeah, we calculated this last year when we made a presentation, and if you compare North Stonington to other towns, the percent of the town budget that goes to supporting the library is how it's calculated. And as I said, we plan to provide the link to this data. We'll send it to Christine after the meeting, so you can take a look at how that's all calculated. And there's this, enormous amount of data that is kept by the Connecticut State Library. So it's
9:30.
Okay, thank you.
Brett?
Regarding the $80,000, what was the major contributing factor of the loss or the deficit over last year?
Oh, it's always been that number, but the town has, progressively had a larger and larger number, for the library in their budget. But in terms of our budget, our expenses versus our income, that's what the gap represents. And that has been consistent year over year. It's not like it's growing bigger and bigger every year.
Okay, so there wasn't something that caused the loss. Christine, do you know the numbers the past few years that we've contributed to other than last year, since we have that number, the prior 2 years or anything?
Well, it was 30,000 the year before,
right?
I believe.
Yes, it was.
And I think we were at 30,000. And I know, like from the 10 years I've been on the board, it was 20, it was 25, it was 30, and then this jumped to 55.
For FY18, FY19, and FY20, it was 30,000 for those 30,000 a year for each of those years.
And then did we ever contribute towards any of the renovation projects of the past? I know you guys did the windows and.
Yes. Yes, the town has always been supportive and contributing to various campaign projects. We replaced the roof, we renovated and replaced windows. We recently had a drainage survey done, and the town contributed, I believe, $30,000 for that. So yes, in years past, and then Amy, you're going to have to chime in here. I think it was 1991. There was that was the last time there was a significant renovation at the library. That's when the elevator was added, and that was a bonded effort from the town.
Amy has her hand up, so I'm just going to promote her to panelist so she can answer questions.
Oh, good.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. Let's see. I was just going to go over a couple of things. The general recommendation for towns to spend on their library is 1 to 1.5% of total municipal revenue. So North Stonington was at the $30,000 level. North Stonington was at 0.14%. With the increase to $55,000, North Stonington moved up to 0.25%. So the chart that I gave to Marietta, she might be able to bring up, shows similar towns, similar population towns, and their contributions to their municipal library. And we are really failing in that way. So before Kate came on the board, probably prior to 1 decade ago, the library board didn't really have any interest in asking the town for a lot of money. They were very nervous about that the town might want to, get into our books or just get more nosier about the library. That kind of old school thinking has gone away. And that's what's driving our desire to have more of a partnership and more of a municipal investment in the library so that we can keep the doors open. That's all we're asking to do, is to keep the doors open for the same number of hours that we do now and to maintain the same level of services that we do now. So we're not asking you to, so that we can do greater things, which we're always trying to do anyway. We're just asking the town to take some responsibility for the services that we provide. The other thing I wanted to say was that in 1991, that was the last renovation. The total cost for that renovation was $750,000, and the town gave $250,000 at that time. So I believe, this renovation will be obviously more expensive. And we'll talk with you about that later. But I just don't want to get away from the fact that, yes, that renovation is coming down the pike, but I'd like us to have a more immediate conversation just about the operating budget, because that to me is really what's critical right now, as opposed to that project. I don't want us to get clouded by that project when we're really just trying to close the gap in our budget.
All right, Sarah Nelson.
Amy, thank you. So just if you have it off the top of your head, what would the 80,000 bring? What would the percentage? I got the 0.25.
I think you guys might be able to do it, because Christine, you said that the municipal revenues are about 20 million, right? So 80,000 to 20 million. Okay. If you guys want it to be phenomenal, right, you'd be giving us 200,000, right, to get us to 1%. So, we could come to you for that, but obviously we're not going to. Maybe next year. But yeah. So I don't know what does 80,000 bring us to again?
Just under 0.5%.
Right. So we're just trying to sort of incrementally get the town in line without a shock.
Thank you.
Paul?
Please. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Paul.
You mentioned about the town getting nosy into your books.
Yeah.
Right now, do we have any visibility to your books? Again, this is ignorance on my part.
I think we No, I mean, no one's ever asked. I don't have a problem being transparent at all. I mean, we have, our endowment is right now sitting at about 1.7 million. And we want to use that conservatively. So spending maybe 4% a year is about kind of where we're supposed to be. So putting 4% of the endowment into our operating budget or into the roof or other capital projects. We've tried to keep that building really well maintained. We've just repointed it. It had significant costs. It's more than 100 years old. And so that endowment is really kind of a long-term insurance policy, just in case everything were to go to heck. So we don't dip into that lightly, but we do have a responsibility to spend about 4% of that per year.
No, I appreciate the transparency. I know I've only been here about 5 years, and that was the first building that I saw that I was wildly impressed with, especially that second floor. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, we are incredibly lucky in North Stonington to have that building. And every time a new resident or anyone comes to that town, into the library, we send them right upstairs after they've looked around. Because
yeah, it's really
it is so special. And you could never build a building like that. And I don't think in these times you could even, if the idea of public libraries were to come to the United States right now, I don't think they'd get built. And so we're very lucky to have public libraries and to think about all those resources available to every single person in the town, essentially for free.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say, Amy, that the town has made an investment in public safety, has made an investment in education. To think about an investment in the library is not a far throw. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Also, I might mention that we have a grant writer in town. And you might consider the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut. I'm a past board member, but as Amy knows, they've always been very sympathetic to libraries and understand the importance they serve to communities. But it would have to be program oriented. But I also would say COVID gives you an opportunity. There's probably been an adaptation in programming to meet the circumstances of COVID. And so, I mean, you're right in the cycle where they are looking over grants, which is usually in March. So
great. Thank you. I also wanted to speak to Mike's point about the second PPP loan. We are not applying for that primarily because there are stricter rules this time, and they're looking for a 25% decrease in revenue. And we're not a for-profit organization. So we can't really illustrate that we've had a revenue decrease of that magnitude. We have actually forgiven fines since COVID started, so we can show a slight decrease in revenue, but we're not an income generating group. So we will get the first one, which we got $17,000, the first PPP loan, and I just got today the email about potential forgiveness, and I believe that will be forgiven.
Any more questions for Amy? Brett?
Amy, just question, what is your total operating?
About 200,000.
200. And then what's your primary source of revenue?
We get actually the annual appeal is so this year our goal for the annual appeal was 77,000. We just crossed that line last week. And so that's significant for us. But we feel like we are only going to be able to get a certain amount of money from townspeople in that fashion. And a significant part of that annual appeal money actually comes through Pfizer matches. And just this year, Pfizer has, at the end of 2020, they stopped doing matches for all of their retirees. That was a fundamental loss for us because we have a couple of Pfizer retirees who are very generous donors. And so we're trying to move away from being dependent on the annual appeal and Pfizer for a huge percentage of our operating budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Amy.
Mike Ergo, did you have something?
Just I want to thank you guys again for taking the time tonight for for waiting till the end here. I'm sorry that you were at the end of the agendas. And I think what you're illustrating is something that's really important, and that's predictability. And I think that's what you're trying to get to a little bit here with your budgets, and you're relying so heavily on donors. I think we have a responsibility as a town to provide that predictability in our budget and our lines. I think it's, we've been presented with challenges as a town over the years. Seems like every year we go into the budget season saying it's going to be a tough year. This is tough. This is that. But we have to be predictable, and that's a tough ask sometimes, because in order to provide predictability to some of these organizations, sometimes that means that there's tax increases. Sometimes it doesn't. But we've been fortunate over the last few years on the general government side, where we haven't had tax increases really. We've been able to keep that fairly level. I'm not really sure that's going to be the case this year. I know that's what Board of Finance asked for. As you heard tonight from the presentations already, there are increases. So, I know our board will have to take that up. I don't know where we'll end up. The Board of Selectmen will meet, we'll discuss all this, of course, but I want to thank you guys for all you do, especially during this COVID time. It has been a challenge for everyone to deal with this, and you guys have been just a model, and we're so thankful to have you here in our town. So thank you.
Thank you. We love our work. And we are, we have people every day coming in and saying, thank God for the library during this, because I think people are lonely and they are frustrated that so many things are unavailable to them. And so, I have some amazing ideas for the library. And one of them is just to get a social service worker in there once a week for a couple of hours from Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, just so people that need social services and don't fall into the senior center population would be able to get services in their own town, in a private space. The money that we got from the state that you were talking about, the Everybody Learns grant, so that was $23,000. We spent the bulk of that on mobile bookcases that will move our nonfiction from the basement up into the top floor. So that will empty up a whole space that we are hoping to create some private study rooms and or meeting rooms, so that there are some private areas in that library for, work from library, or, meeting with your mortgage broker, or meeting with a social services person, which I think that, along with tax assistance, things like that, we need to be able to provide at the library.
Sarah?
Yeah, I do think those additional services that you offer do make a huge difference. I know, you've offered space for like people in town to be able to have like a little yoga session for kids, and we've in some instances after school hours, so that kids could take the bus for working parents and get off at the library, meet that person, and then go do those activities. I think that's been incredibly valuable. And we're really grateful for the fact that, you're more than a library, you're just you're like a community center.
We're lucky that we can we're filling that niche, because there really isn't anything else that meets that need in North Stonington. And so, we feel the responsibility and the honor and the joy to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Kate. Any other questions before we close on Wheeler Library? Okay. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Good presentation.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marietta.
Good night.
Good night. All right. The time right now is 9:45. I'd kind of like to think that we could stop at 10, so if we can get some few things done in the next 15 minutes. I know a lot of us have responsibilities tomorrow morning, so.
And if it's all right, I'll adjourn my board, since the rest of the agenda is yours, if that's okay.
Sure. Board of Selectmen, Mike, Bob, Nita, thank you so much.
I don't know if everyone will stay on, but just to officially get us off your screens, I'll take a motion to adjourn the Board of Selectmen from this meeting. Motion, Nita seconding. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Board of Selectmen's adjourned at 9:43.
Great, thank you again. All right, Board of Finance, next is agenda item number 5. And I know this is one that we've carried along for a while, Board of Finance policy review. And the next is auditor appointment. In our last meeting, we did a final look at the undesignated fund policy. And I think we were happy with all except there was a suggestion actually by me that on the maximum level, we had it at 16%. And I suggested it go to 17%, simply because it's an easy optic. If we're talking about 8.5% relatively being a 1 month's expenditure, 17% would be 2 months expenditure and reserve. So I think it's easy for people to understand that. So that was my thought there. So my own suggestion would be moving the 16 to 17 on that rationale. And I think we wanted to table it till we got more in attendance to weigh in. Any comment on that? Sarah, I think I saw you first, then Dan, then Mike.
I agree with 17%. I think buffer is good.
All right. Mike, you're next.
I mean, given the fact that the auditor thought we should be in the 20s, I think 17 is not unreasonable.
Okay. Thank you. And Dan, I'm coming to you next.
Where are we currently with the undesignated fund balance?
I can give you a strong guesstimate.
Estimations works at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. If we were to use the 400,000 that roughly that we had talked about, it would put us down to just a little over a 15% reserve.
So we're not even going to hit the top threshold this year with
No.
going over. If we left it at 16, it would not, we're not giving any money back for at least another year because we have a 1-year wait. So leaving it this year to get this policy passed would have no bearing, and we can revisit it next year.
Well, I think it would be smart at this point. We put so much work on it just to lock it down. And I think it's been expressed by a couple, but myself, it's easy to say that the maximum would be 2-month reserve on expenditures for the town. Paul, you had your hand up?
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you, Dan. 2 months, a nice even number versus 7 weeks of extra funds is I think 2 months is perfect, 17%.
I think rather than a percentage number, you can explain it by saying that would be 2 months in reserve.
Exactly, yeah.
People understand that, they get it. So.
Instead of a month and 3/4. Yeah, I get you.
So with that amendment, I would make a motion that we approve the undesignated fund policy presented with that one amendment. Do I have a second?
You do.
Okay, that would be Paul. Any discussion? All right, if we can bring it to a vote, I'll have to poll. Where do we start here? Mike Anderson, I see you at the top. Yay or nay?
Yay.
And then we've got Carolyn Howell.
Yay.
And Paul Simon.
Yay.
And Dan Smith.
Yay.
And myself will be a yay. And we got Ann Aiken on. Ann?
Yay.
I spoke to you tonight, but hi, yay. Okay.
Really you.
It's really me.
Yeah. So it passes. Dan, I want to thank you for your work. You're the author of it, and I certainly give you credit for that. Good job.
Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll make that change, and I'll send it out to everyone, and including Christine, and then you guys will have the copy of it. Just give me a day or so.
That'll be
Thank you.
fine. And I'll have to, Christine, there you are. I'll have to apply my signature and we can post that on the website. Okay,
Yes, there's also been a request when we put new policies that we put the printed name of the person in addition to the signature, so we know who the chair was. At the
yeah,
time.
sure, that's understandable.
So just passing that along.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Yes, thanks, Dan. And next on here is the auditor appointment for fiscal year 21. So I think we kind of developed a consensus and circumstances where we are with COVID and all. I did forward, I hope people saw it, what the contractual for the next year would be with our auditor. It has gone up in price for a couple of reasons. One is there's more auditing regulation, particularly on leases, of which we have several that we carry. And there's just been actually more demand. The auditor that we have had for a number of years now, we have not had an increase since 2017. So this would be Sandra Wellwood, who I'm talking about. Just find out. I just want to give you the numbers if you haven't seen it already. Just bear with me a moment. Yeah. So we would be moving up to a audit fee of $31,500, which actually is a 9% increase over what we paid last year. Also, if there was a demand for a federal single audit, our fee then, if it were used, was $1,500, but it has been increased to $3,000. Mike, I think I saw your hand up first, and then Brett.
Has anyone done any market analysis as to, what would be a typical fee paid out there? Are they in the realm of what the market's going to bear?
Only from my other exposures and on other boards, but to bring it back to the town, when I came on in 2010, we had an auditing service that we were paying $44,000 a year. And as we did an RFP, we brought Sandra Wellwood in just a little over $22,000 a year. So in terms of what we've done in town, I mean, that's the comparative. For a town our size to pay an auditing fee of $40,000, in my own opinion and experience, would not be out of the ballpark. So. And because of COVID and all of that, it's difficult to get out an RFP. Plus, we're late at this point. We need to have an engagement for auditing services into the state. Dan Smith, I think you were next, and then Brett.
Yeah. So with COVID, it sounds like our Christine and everybody at town hall is making the extra effort to fulfill what she needs to have, or the firm's need for information during this time. Is her services discounting also the traveling expense that she would be coming out all the way out here for? I believe she's on the other side of Connecticut, but it seems like we're doing a lot of the legwork. Even though it is more work, we're providing a lot of the information due to COVID, and it's not like we're seeing a big price difference in this.
So
maybe I'm missing something, but
yeah. One is that the work that is done by the people in administration, they would be doing otherwise, other than sending information digitally over to the auditors. I mean, all of their work is something that would happen otherwise. So, and it's just a matter of them fulfilling the request, sending over the material digitally. Yeah, the travel side, I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but Brett, you're next.
Yeah, Dan, when I look at that and I look at the increase, I think we owe it to the town to do our due diligence and put out an RFP for it. I think an increase like this during this time, and also, I don't know if you paid attention to what happened in Preston, where Preston wasn't responding fast enough with the emails, so they fired Preston, the same accounting firm, and left them high and dry to finish their audit. How do we know that wouldn't happen to us if there's an issue? And that was just in the paper last week, and it's the same auditor. I just think an increase like this, we owe it to our town to make sure we're getting the best price we can and a good service at the same time. And with that, how do we not have to go out for bid on this? If it's over the $10,000 mark, there's not an existing contract in place, a multi-year contract. How do we get around that ordinance or that state law?
Yeah, I think, you know, relative to where we're at, I mean, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. I would have to admit that. And as I've mentioned in previous meetings, I would be more inclined to do an RFP, particularly for the number of years that we've had her in tenure. But, you know, to keep things rolling in terms of meeting state requirements, you know, that's kind of where we're at. And I don't think what's happened in Preston is relative. If you read the article and some of the comments by Board of Finance members, and this is a lesson, you know, if I should be here or not on the board, that you know, the Board of Finance has a responsibility to be in touch with where are we relative to our audit. Christine can affirm that as we went through the summer and into the fall, I was continually making inquiries relative to the field work and audit preparation. So it tells me, you know, and for the full-time people in Preston, they weren't doing what they should be doing in terms of their responsibility.
Yeah, can I just speak to working with Sandy? She's very persistent. She sends a lot of emails. She calls a lot. So I don't work in Preston, but I have to assume that they just didn't respond to all of her requests because she is patient. She works with you. She tells you what she needs. She sent us a massive list before they even came out saying, from the Board of Ed, I need this, from the town, I need this, and from both sides, I need this. And it was like a 4-page document of everything we needed to get together before we even started. So, you know, she's very thorough and she's helpful. So I don't know what happened there, but I don't think that we would have that same kind of an issue because we are, you know, between myself and Susan and Deb over at the Board of Ed, we work very closely to get everything accomplished. So I don't think we would have the same sort of an issue. And it is an extension of an existing contract. So I think that's why we don't have to necessarily do an RFP for it.
So yeah, that point's good, but I do think we have time to do it. I mean, if you look at it, almost half of the towns in Connecticut filed for an extension of their audits. So 79 towns out of what, 160. So almost 50% filed for an extension. But I just don't understand. First of all, I don't understand how it could be a multi-year contract if we have to award it every year. Secondly, how do we do that when anything over 10 grand, we're supposed to go and get quotes, bids for? Whether we have a relationship or not with someone, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I think if we're really watching out for our community and our town, at least make sure we're in the same ballpark. You know, it's always not lowest bid that we have to award it, but I think it's important to to know we're not just spending extra money than we need to, especially this year.
Well, it would be easy for us to call other towns, that are not using her services, and find out what they're paying for auditing services. It's something we could do out of the town hall. Just to give a sense of where does that fall.
But why wouldn't we? I guess my question: why don't we want to follow that rule and just do it correctly?
I think we have an obligation, usually in January, and now we're in February, there's an obligation to notify the state as to who is going to be doing the auditing services for the town.
What statute are you referring to, Brett?
I'll have to look it up, but Dan should have that. Anything over 10,000 has to go to bid. I'll look as you guys talk more.
But I think there's an exemption on professional services as far as things needing to go out to bid.
But okay.
Carolyn, you next.
I was just curious. I know we have this happen every single year where we find ourselves behind the 8 ball on this particular subject. If I'm not mistaken, we did put out an RFP a few years ago, unless again I'm mistaken, and we didn't get a response. I'm just wondering, even if you didn't do one now for some reason, is it possible to do one now for the following year? Just so you already have it out there, and you advertise in places like Longmeadow, Springfield, places outside of our immediate area where you might get legal and accounting firms that are licensed in Connecticut, but we're not just limiting ourselves to people, businesses right here necessarily, since we're not really getting good responses to these RFPs. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Ann, you're next.
Yeah, Dan, what is the drop dead date we have to notify the state by?
Christine might know that, but I know.
I don't have it with me.
I know in my tenure, January was the month that we always notified the state as to who we engaged for auditing services. And we have I have to tell you, we have a very strong mandate to have auditing services in place and to get an audit done. And, Preston has put themselves at risk, and I hate to say it, I would not want to see us in that position.
Well, I don't want to see us in that position either, but if we have time, then I think we owe it to the town to send an RFP out. 9% is a pretty significant increase.
I can't argue that. I think from 2017, though, we haven't had any increases. So if I were to factor back, maybe we're looking at a 2 or 3% increase per year to bring us to where we are now. And I also would say our auditing services, and Christine can affirm this, has been a tremendous resource to the town. So I'm not dissuading us from the RFP. I'm just saying we're kind of in a tight timeline. We can reconfirm what the state requirement is in terms of us submitting an engagement. And then it does take time to put out an RFP. We're talking easily 60 days, maybe 90 days before we select a new auditing service, if that should be the case.
Yeah, Dan, I do see some towns in the state that have bids out requests for proposals right now with the end of February deadline to get the audit, to get some of those proposals back. So I don't think we missed the deadline, but you're probably right. We're close, and we'd have to act quickly to get something out.
And we can't get something out that quickly because we don't have one to put out. The last one that was put out was right when I first started, and we need to start from scratch. So as far as an RFP.
You know, I think one of the answers here would be to do a survey of towns as to what they're paying for auditing services, towns that have a similar budget size to us.
Yeah, I was gonna
Mike,
ask,
Mike, are you back up, Mike Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I thought your point, and I was going to bring it up myself, but the fact that we've had no increases since 2017, you know, makes the 9% increase not as significant if you think most people are at a 3% cost of living increase. The second point, wasn't she talking last year about that she might have to increase what we paid this year for auditing services? I can't remember. Did that come to fruition that she actually charged more for her services or not?
Well, we had the COVID piece. And so there were added expenditures there that she had targeted at 8,000, but because of the diligence of our team here in town, it came in at 6,000. So there was added responsibilities in the audit relative to COVID.
Okay, so last year cost us $6,000 more than what was in the budget.
Yeah.
And so this year,
and was that reimbursable, Christine?
It is reimbursable. So we, if we need to, we'll do a transfer to cover if we go over.
I mean, is it, and my third point, is there something that we can go back to her and say, you know, that kind of increase is not acceptable, and we're going to go out to RFP? I mean, it's a negotiating type situation, is it not?
Yeah, and when I talked about correspondence, I did call her relative to that, Mike. And, you know, she more or less said, look, you know, I haven't really increased since 2017. And, you know, more is now involved in any town audit, ours to be included. I also would say, you know, relative to her services, and again, Christine's been here long enough that she can confirm this, and it's just some of the things that Board of Finance members aren't saying. I mean, it's usually things I'm listening to, but she has offered tremendous educational services to our individuals to really bring up their qualification. So that would include Susan and Deb in particular, and I know she's been very helpful to Christine as she joined the team.
Is Deb on the line is she in
Deb
the
Martin?
audience?
No.
Yeah.
I think she dropped off. She was on.
Yeah,
earlier.
she was earlier, but it's getting late.
yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna make a motion to approve. Was it Susan Wellwood?
Sandra Wellwood.
Sandra Wellwood as our auditor for the upcoming fiscal year.
I would second that.
And to everyone's point, you know, now that we're in discussion, Dan, we're in discussion. I really think next year we're going to have to put out a RFP.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. That's where I would go in the discussion bit for sure.
Yeah, and I think we had said that prior to like COVID, that, you know, time had come that it would be smart doing that. I think I would have Christine, just to give you some assurance, do a survey of towns of similar budget size.
Agreed.
Yeah, some benchmarking would be great.
Yeah.
Dan, did you say you've had her for 5 years now or 3?
No, we've had her since 2012.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's time for sure. Yeah.
But we did do an RFP when I first got hired. I didn't put it together, but we did put one out. And we did not have good response because of the size of the town and the size of the budget. A lot of auditing firms were looking to work with larger towns, larger budgets. So that's why I think I need to spend a good amount of time looking at other people's RFPs, fine tuning ours, and making sure it's appropriate for the scale of our audit, since we don't do the full massive audit standards book that the larger towns do. So I think we need to really have a good idea of what we're looking for to make sure that we get the appropriate response.
Yes. Carolyn Howell.
So Christine, when would you anticipate that you would be ready to send something like that out so that we could have it for the next,
I would say once we're done with the budget process, then I'll have time, as there's gaps when we're working on things, I can start looking at the ones that Brett says are out there right now so that we can have reference of, what size towns and what they're doing. Because it's better to kind of borrow from other people's as long as it's appropriate to our scale and scope. And I think that was part of the problem with the RFP we put out last, was it wasn't necessarily appropriate to the scope of our audit. So.
Okay, so I just have one more question. You said that professional services doesn't require an RFP. You think it's exempt, but
there's certain language it's either in the statute or in the state policy that stipulates certain things are exempt. I don't want to quote it because I do not know it for sure. I'll look when I'm in the office tomorrow to try and find it.
I don't think that's necessarily a good precedence to set if we, I think if you're spending that kind of money.
It's been done multiple times for auditing services. We haven't gone out to bid every year on it. But I want to say it's like engineering services and certain professional services are exempt, but I need to find the actual language on it.
So again, I guess my only concern is I don't want to make a precedence of it. If we're talking about auditing services for 1 year again, I think it's a good idea to send one out if we can. If it's not feasible, then I think we should do what we need to do to meet the deadlines and the requirements. But I don't think this should continue year over year like it has been.
Yeah, I think we've brought that up, Carolyn. I think as you've brought out quite a number of times, we're in circumstances that we've never been in before. And so we're trying to meet our obligations, particularly those that are mandated, and do it that is going to be satisfactory to the consensus here and to the benefit of the town. Brett?
Yeah, I just want to say, I understand why, Mike, you made that motion. And I'm not voting, I don't get to vote tonight, but I think we should probably get a handle on the law before you make a motion and we vote affirmative on a motion. If we don't know if we're violating a state statute about not putting out to RFP. I do think that we don't have accurate information on the timeline right now, because I'm looking at another town whose request for proposal is going to be, they're putting out for advertisement March 8th. Their due dates for proposals not till April 4th, and they're not actually appointing it until May 31st. And they're not getting
And
the
that
recommendation.
specifies it's for FY21 audit?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's for auditing, professional services, request for proposal of auditing services.
What you're not seeing there, Brett, and it would take a little discovery, but Preston, for instance, in their circumstances, are in violation.
Okay, I mean, these are some towns with decent towns with RFPs out there right now. I'm just saying we're voting on something that we don't even know if we're violating a state statute on by not putting out to an RFP, whether it was done in the past or not. It would have been nice to get that clarification to say, hey, this is the state statute that says this is a precluded item that doesn't need to go out, professional services that doesn't need to, and then the point is mute and we're all good and we all are on the same page. I just saying we don't know and still voting on something, it seems crazy why we can't wait 2 weeks to know that we're doing it right. That's just my opinion. And I appreciate the time. I'll take my virtual hand down now.
Thank you. Dan Smith?
Mike, would you modify your motion to add that if we go with this auditing firm, that we're gonna commit to having a study done and to have an RFP go out for the next fiscal year?
I don't have a problem with that. As long as, I mean, I'd like some more discussion on that from the group. I don't have an opposition to that, Dan. Does
Can we
anyone
just
else have
table
any- I
this
mean,
till the next meeting?
well, I'm trying to get on Westlaw right now as we speak to see if I can, but I have to remote into my work computer to kind of get to it.
That's fancy. I'm just on state.
It's so nice to have a lawyer on the board.
Dan Spring, what is your opinion on the mod to the motion, since you seconded it?
I think to do to include that we are going to follow up with an RFP for the following fiscal year, I have no problem with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to have a study done. We gotta get through budget season. Budget season is gonna take a long time. We're not gonna have any free time to be able to bounce in between stuff. We want to do this right. We're kind of under the gun. I get it. But we want to show the town that we're doing our due diligence going forward. Am I happy about a 9% increase of her fees? Not really. I see the training portion of it. It's just, I think we need to do our due diligence going forward into the next fiscal year. And I think modifying that motion and putting that language in there would help.
Yeah, and Mike has made the motion.
Do you want me to withdraw my original motion and redo it, or?
Yeah.
Okay, I withdraw my motion and I move to approve Sandra Wellwood as our auditor for fiscal year 2021-22. With the caveat that
it would be for fiscal year 21. That's all you have to say.
Fiscal year 2021. With the caveat that we will do a request for proposal for auditing services for the next fiscal year.
And I would add the second to that. Okay. Brett?
So Dan, if you are moving forward with this, I don't understand how there's no negotiations with this. And the reason I'm being vocal about this, and I apologize if I'm speaking so much about it, is we're going through the budget season and we're going to cut other boards and commissions and boards of education's budget by money like this that is really important to these boards and commissions and other services. Yet we're so quick to just approve a 9% increase on a service that those few $1,000s could go a long way with other boards and commissions, or the library that we just saw. I mean, we cut the library's budget last year from their request from $75,000 down to $55,000. Yet we're so willing to give the auditor an extra $4,000. I just don't understand how this isn't a negotiation and we're just so quick to say yes. That's all.
Brett, I don't think quick would be correct. We're very familiar with her services and what she's rendered relative to the town, and that she's had no increases since 2017, and that I did call to try to negotiate it, and she was hard fast. And
of course, if we're not willing to put it out to a bid, she's going to be hard fast. We have nothing else to push back against. It's basic negotiation skills. If we have nothing to push back against, you're going to lose every time.
Well, what I would add here, Brett, unlike other things we're talking about, the audit and auditing services are a mandate. It's our responsibility to have an auditing service in place for the town.
So it's funding public education and everything else that we work on here. It's a mandate. I just, it's shocking that we're so quick to, we just got the numbers of the increase a few days ago, and we're just so quick to say, okay, when we hem and haw and we put all these other boards and commissions and Board of Eds and the fire department through so much for small budget increases sometimes, that we don't do the same on this. That's all. It's disappointing.
Well, Brett, I disagree with your dialogue totally. You know, that, you know, we don't look at these things in an easy, quick fashion. I think Christine, you know, would affirm the level of the quality of service we get from this auditing service. As I came onto the board in 2010, we were paying an auditor $40,000 a year. And I will tell you frankly, and you can call Nick Mullane, our books were a mess. A mess. Nobody knew what they were doing. And I couldn't believe that it went on the way it did, quite frankly. So I'm answering to our responsibility. I can see your side, Brett, relative to the responsibility, but we have a mandate with the state to get our audit done in a timely fashion and then have engagement for the next fiscal year. Carolyn?
Again, can we table this until our next meeting just to make sure that we're doing things properly? I mean, I'm not questioning Mike, he's an attorney, but, you know, I do think it's important to know, you know, what is the law and what are our obligations and what are the dates? That's not to say that, you know, we can't change our circumstances just because we're where we're at, but at least if we've made sure that we're doing things properly.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. And
I'll speak, Dan. One, I mean, we're all here in public, and one strategy to satisfy everybody here is to have a vote. If you do not want to vote yes, then you vote no. Dan will go back to tell Sandra Wellwood that we did not vote to retain her services per her contract. And you give her an opportunity to give us a different proposal, or it's going to go out to bid. Or it might go out to bid. Or someone might bring up the vote again next week. We don't know. But during this, between now and the next time we meet, Dan, she's got some thinking to do. Don't put that in the minutes. And hopefully she's not on right now.
yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that we could do as a board. We don't like her number.
But for me, you know, I'm satisfied with the caveat that we are going to look at this next year. The increase is high, but it's not been an increase for several years. I'd be ready to vote in the affirmative tonight just to move forward, knowing that we're going to relook at it next year.
And I don't disagree with you, Paul. I mean, this is and Brett, to your point, there's wants and there's needs, and this is not one of those wants thing. This is a need to do. You know, to Dan's point, we have to have this auditing service. But, you know, if I'm just giving you an option.
Dan Smith?
So the only thing I would, you know, playing the game of chicken works sometimes, but if she's firm on this, as much as Dan's saying is, and we say no, she could say, all right, see you guys later. I'll go find somebody else. And then we're holding the bag. And we got to be prepared that we might have a consequence to that, which might be considerably higher, or we might not get anybody at all that wants to take the town. And then you could come back and say, well, I just increased it another 20K.
Are you saying you don't want to be another Preston?
Well, Preston's Preston. I'm not going to, we don't know truly what's going on. There's always two sides of the story.
No, that's fair.
I just don't want to play I do not have good luck, and I don't like playing the game of chicken. Am I happy about a 9% increase? Absolutely not. But I'm willing to bet that if we go out there and we tell her no, there's a very good chance she could say, well, nice working with you. Don't bother calling me when you can't get it. She's done her homework.
Yeah, she knows where she is in the market, Dan, to your point. And the other, Christine, I think, brought it up. We're a size that there are only few auditing services that will satisfy the niche. We're small. So, we risk the possibility of a firm saying, look, you're small, I'm willing to do you, but it's at a premium. So, that's how the market works. So, all right, we've added the amendment to Mike, and we have a second. I think we've gone through enough discussion.
Dan?
Ann had one comment. She hasn't weighed in yet.
I'm missing your face, Ann. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, we can table it till next week. We can do anything we want. But Christine has already said she's not going to have the time to do an RFP until after budget season's done. So I don't see where we really have a choice but to go with Sandra for this year.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to poll for the vote. Mike Anderson,
Yay.
Carolyn Howell,
Yay.
that was a yay, Carolyn.
Yes, that's correct.
Paul Simon,
Yay.
Dan Smith,
Yay.
Ann Aiken,
Yay.
and Dan Spring, yay. So that passes 6-0-0. Thank you for that. And I will have Christine do the survey, so we can bring that information back to the board. All right.
And I'll start gathering other people's RFPs and seeing what information I can get so that we're ready much in advance for next year.
All right. 10:30, folks. You think we're done?
Uncle.
I make a motion, we table the minutes until next meeting.
Yes, thank you for doing that. That should happen.
Hey, Dan, I do have one question. If we're going to wrap it up, there's a Board of Finance members in your strategic strategy or future strategies portion of it. What is that?
Yeah, I think what I've seen is individual members making inquiries on things. So I mean, on that, I probably would be addressing Carolyn Howell. She sent out to everyone that she had particular interest in certain billings and invoices and so forth, which was in fact provided by Christine. I know she said in the last meeting she didn't get it, but come to find out that her draft wasn't sent. So, but Christine did comply. And so, if it's an interest to the Board of Finance, you're a Board of Finance member, maybe you can tell us what the intent is and what your discovery might have been, Carolyn.
Yeah, I actually, I was putting together like a spreadsheet to show, I went through the accounts to show how much money was spent over the last year, since nobody could seem to find those magic numbers, even though we've been paying these bills year over year. I don't have everything, but I have like Eversource account number that ends in 2032, between January 23rd, 2020 and December 24th, 2020, the total new charges. So I didn't include anything that was carried over from the prior bill, or because the balances weren't being paid in full every month. So it's kind of misleading when you look at, you know, what's actually being paid out of the budget versus what we're actually owing to these entities. So for that account, the total over that period was $58,587.77. Then there was another Eversource account for gas. That one was electric. So this one was gas. It ends in 5028. This one went from January 2020 through January 4th, 2021. We're talking $31,924. There was another Eversource for gas.
Carolyn, rather than go through all of those invoices by dollar amount,
Yeah.
why don't you come to a summation and reconcile it with Christine and then bring it back to the board?
Okay, well, I have it here. What I would like to do is make a motion that when the town pays bills, that they scan the bills with the checks attached. It's in the same way we do it where I work, where we take the check, the invoices all get scanned together, and that way they're available for anyone to look at. And maybe we could have the opportunity, you know, as board members to look at these invoices that are being paid. And if there's anything that we have questions about, we could bring up at our meetings. I think it's something simple to do. Since it's not available to us on OpenGov, it's the next best thing. And I think it's important to know, you know, every month, or at least have the ability to look at these bills every month to see what's being paid. Where is the money going? And I think, you know, I know you've said we have an auditor, but that's, I mean, we're here, you know, boots on the ground, familiar with everything that's going on in town. So I think that there's things that people might question and should question if they have the opportunity to actually see some of the invoices that are being paid during the course of a year.
In saying that we have auditing service, I wasn't trying to brush it off, but we also have a treasurer who signs the checks.
No, I understand that, but again, the treasurer, everyone's signing checks, but nobody's really, I mean, all of a sudden we're finding out that we're paying thousands of dollars, you know, more than what was budgeted. And every time we asked for information, it wasn't being, you know, made available readily. So I just think that's an easy way to resolve the whole situation. We could all have that information available to us, should we choose to look at it. And it's not personal and confidential in nature. It's bills that the town are paying.
Well, that's a lot of extra work for me to put together to email you guys.
I don't think you need to really do a lot of extra work. You just put it in a scanner as one document and people
And then I have to upload it all to individual emails to send out to you guys.
You don't have to send it out. You could post it where we could access it within Office 365. I don't think you need to send it anywhere. And actually, I mean, anybody in town really should be able to look at this information, in my opinion.
All right, Carolyn, what I'd like to do is, and again, because of the hour, 10:35, you know, we'll follow through on this discussion. I'll keep it in future strategies.
Okay, well, I made a motion. Everyone else seems to be able to make motions, and I don't think I'm asking for something that's really out of line. I don't know if anybody feels comfortable seconding my motion.
Maybe you can articulate the motion, Carolyn, because I missed it, you know.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that when the town pays their bills each month, like whatever check runs they do, that they would scan the check, copy of the check with the invoices together in a document that we could have access to and review if we choose to. You know.
Okay, I mean, I actually see that as a responsibility of the treasurer. But, you know, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
Okay, no one's interested then. All right, thank you. I'll withdraw the motion then.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Hey, Dan, maybe it's something that we should have the treasurer just come and talk about the process of signing the bills and to go over what the process is. Maybe a quick thing that we can get Mustafa to come in and just have a
Right.
discussion.
Yeah, part of, the way things are set up and we're small, again, we have to come back to that, is that we have to have checks and balances. So, we have the Board of Finance, we have the treasurer, we have our bookkeeper, and we
So-
have our auditing services. So
So
that's
maybe
how
we
it's
have,
all-
so maybe we have it so he comes maybe once a month or every other month and discuss some of the charges and whatnot that that he signs, or the bookkeeper, or have a little interface with the oversight board that we are. I don't know what other people are thinking about it, but we need to have, if there are truly questions that we have, has sending the check out with, the bill being paid. Yeah. Okay. But, the town pays a lot of bills. There's a lot of checks. And I think it would maybe be easier to just have them come in and just discuss it.
Yeah, the introduction to the treasurer, Mustafa, I have no problem with whatsoever.
I haven't seen Mustafa in almost a year. So, since he took over that position, I know that, he signs checks. I know the selectmen sign checks, but, it's kind of the black hole of knowledge. And it would be nice to have him come in and discuss it, maybe even with the bookkeepers. I think this might help out a little bit of everybody's education on it,
All right,
especially mine.
All right, Christine?
I think that I do a lot of that when we review the profit and loss every month. I've brought to your attention if we have line items that have gone over. I've tried to supply any information if you're looking for specific invoices and things. I completely agree if you want to have Mustafa come in to talk about his process and how those things go. But as far as having the bookkeeper come in, I don't know that that's necessary.
I'm throwing names, I'm throwing bookkeeper. It's going on 10:40 at night. We just had a motion that didn't get picked up, and I'm kind of just trying to build bridges on trying to get everybody to come together on this, because I know this has been kind of a hot topic over the past 6 to 8 months. And have Mustafa come in. Can it hurt? Have him come in. Maybe he likes it. Hey, come back to the old stomping grounds of the Board of Finance. I don't know.
We'll extend that invitation and see where it fits in the calendar. We've got some presentations yet to go through.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anne has her hand up.
Anne, go ahead.
Perhaps as another option, could one of the reports we get every month be a copy of the check register for checks that were written for the month?
I don't know. My own view is, we're an oversight board, and the administration, I hate to get too much in the weeds, but I think relative to that possibility, we could talk to the treasurer about, Mustafa. So. I think at this point,
I'm still on Westlaw, by the way.
What's that?
I'm on state statutes too there.
What was the public comments, Dan?
Yeah, are we done with comments? Are we all set?
Let's go. We got to move to public comment still, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one person with a hand up right now, so.
Okay, thank you.
Can I recognize them?
Do you know who it is, Christine?
Yes, it's Sean. Sean, go ahead.
I just have one question about the library's comment. The library representative made. Something about receiving funding for the town for drainage recently. Does anyone know what that's about? I don't remember seeing that as a capital item in our budget recently.
No, I haven't either, Sean, and I think Kate was uncertain as to the time frame. So
It might have been back during Nick's time, when Nick was first selectman. I mean, it would have had to been that long ago. I don't remember seeing it anytime soon, and hopefully they haven't received money that wasn't earmarked in our budget.
no, I'd be happy to check on that. I've had a long enough tenure. I remember the roof. I remember the windows. So, I mean, I don't remember anything about drainage.
If you would, I'd appreciate it. It just surprised me.
Yep. I'm happy to come up with an answer for you, and I respect your contribution, Sean, as I hope you respect ours.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, no, there's one public comment. Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, yeah, I stayed with you guys too. I know it was a long meeting and I'll be short. Yeah, when the library mentioned that Pfizer doesn't match the, I guess the donations now. So
For
Charter Oak,
retirees.
I believe did. I believe Charter Oak does. So that's one avenue they can travel. Anyways, thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. We got another comment, Brett?
Yeah, I just want to say I did find, as we were looking through stuff, the only thing is we do need to let the state know who our auditor is by 30 days after our fiscal end of the year. So that's the only timeline the state gives us on when to let them know who the auditor is. So just as that popped up, I thought I'd say it now so I don't forget. Thanks.
Dan, are you still going forward with your motion?
Motion adjourn.
All right. Second? No one?
Yes, I was talking to a muted mic. Yes, please.
Paul, because I saw you jumping forward.
I was waiting my
Come on, 4 a.m. comes early for me.
Yeah, I know.
And I would assume that we're unanimous on the vote, and I would put our time at 10:44. Thank you, everybody. I mean, we may have another long night or two yet. Just bear with it, and we still have a lot to talk about as we put the pieces together. I know we're in adjournment, but just totaling up with the increases were brought forward, 131,150, which against our new grand list would equate to just under $250,000.
Okay.
You can sleep on that.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Till the next time.
Yes.